to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Now Jack Hughes puts it around the car. United States with numbers. Black across it comes. Jack Hughes wins it. The golden goal for the United States. For the first time since the 1980 miracle, the United States takes the gold. Jack Hughes beating Jordan Bennington.
What a game, what a goal, what a win for Team USA alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. That audio courtesy of NBC Sports as Team USA wins the gold. First time doing so in actually all of our lifetimes combined, basically. Unbelievable. Just an absolutely fantastic game from start to finish. Goes to overtime. You get the golden goal there. And T-Bone, they were not the better team.
No.
Canada was better from start to finish in that game. Doesn't matter. They didn't win. All that matters is that you come out ahead, and Team USA found a way to do exactly that, in large part because of players that people in the NHL have described as losers. Connor Hellebuck can't win the big one. You just can't win with him. That is not a guy that you can ride to a Stanley Cup final. Regular season, best goalie in the league. Guy can win an MVP. But in the postseason, don't trust him. And then he stands on his head in the biggest game of his life against the best players in the world and helps Team USA win. Austin Matthews, nice game. Jack Hughes, huge goal. These are all guys that in the NHL, in their respective careers, we know them for one thing, but in the biggest game they've ever played in, they did something entirely different. I'm curious, you guys, I'm sure, had 100 different takeaways from what we witnessed yesterday. What was your biggest one, T-Bone?
Mine was Hellebuck in that contest because he has always been known, and I mean, we saw it here in St. Louis last year during the playoffs, as a guy that becomes a shell of himself when it comes to big games or pressure situations. And he was the best goalie in the Olympic tournament. I mean, his numbers were insane. It was like a .950 save percentage, which is nuts. Gave up the fewest amount of goals in the tournament. And it's not like he had the same amount of pressure on him like Bennington did. And Bennington was good in that game. He only faced 28 shots. He was peppered with 42 attempts on goal towards him last night. And it wasn't like they were all from the outside. No. There was a ton of high danger chances heading his way. So I was extremely impressed with Connor Hellebuck and the fact that he's able to get that monkey off his back as proving that he can perform in a big game. He's the reason why they're walking out of Milan with the gold medal, because they should have lost that game. Like, I think expected goals were like 5-2 in Canada's favor. They should have been blown out of the water. Canada was that much better than them on the ice in that game yesterday, and Hellebuck just kept absorbing shot after shot after shot and allowing them to get that game to overtime where they were able to take advantage of the 3-on-3. He's my biggest takeaway.
I think a lot of people hear us say Canada was the better team, and they'll push back and be like, no, guys, the better team won. I'm not saying that to diminish what Team USA accomplished yesterday. In fact, it's quite the opposite, rather. If you can find a way to win the game, despite not necessarily being the better team overall, that says a lot about the character and the grit of what you had and your ability to just keep with it, man. And just find a way to make plays when you needed to. They got stuck in their own end for like half of that game. Like, Canada was just coming in waves. It was hard for Team USA at times to get the puck out of their own end. But when they needed to make a play, they did. And they found just enough offense to be able to overcome what Canada was providing in that game. So I was unbelievably impressed. The speed on display in that game was unbelievable. I mean, just the overall skill that you saw from both teams was crazy. The goaltending on both sides, Connor Hellebuck obviously was better, but man, Bennington did not lose that game. The conversation today, I can't imagine, is about Jordan Bennington being a problem for Team Canada in these Olympics.
Agreed.
That should not, if it is anywhere in Canada, they're fooling themselves. That was not their problem. They scored a goal in that game against Team USA. It's very clear what went wrong for them. They didn't score enough. But Jordan Bennington was everything they could have asked for and then some. He lived up to his MO as being the big game goalie. He was awesome for Team Canada yesterday and really almost the entirety of that tournament.
Yeah, he was good for them for a majority of that tournament. He gave up like a soft goal or two against France and maybe one against Czechia in the quarterfinals. Outside of that, he did what we expect of Jordan Binnington in those big game situations to step up. Their problem, and it sounds weird to say, was their lack of finishing in that game. They had plenty of opportunities, and like one of them was just like an incredible save, well, a luck save, I'll call it, from Hellebuck, where he stuck the stick out, and he ends up blocking a shot that was right there on the goal line and prevents it from going in. Otherwise, they lose that game in regulation probably. But also, like, McKinnon has a wide open net late in that third period, and he fires it wide. Like, that never happens for McKinnon when he's at the NHL level. It happened one time, and that was their biggest issue. They just couldn't finish. And now you're starting to see that the U.S. is now finally up there with Team Canada. They can finally say, we belong up here at the best of the best with Canada. We have gone past the level of the Russians or the Swedes or the Finns, and no longer just the two, right? We talked about this after Four Nations. It was, okay, Canada's still the best of the best. Not anymore, man. Now it runs through Team USA as they are now the best team in the world at the hockey level.
It's amazing. The big conversation coming out of it afterwards is what took place in overtime as they go to 3-on-3. John Cooper, I think, had the right message. He's just not the right messenger for it. Coming off of a loss in 3-on-3 overtime, it comes off as crybaby behavior to say, like, hey, we shouldn't be playing 3-on-3 overtime in the Olympics. I agree with him. If you're going to play for the gold medal game in particular, if you want to use, especially for pool play, you're trying to figure out where you're at, and you go to 3-on-3 overtime and then the shootout, that's fine. I don't love it, but it's fine. I understand you've got to be able to, be smart about this stuff. Once you get into the medal games, though, can we all have a little bit of
common sense?
Understanding?
Oh.
Yeah, common sense is probably the better. We can play 5-on-5. We can do that for, 10 minutes at least. And then if you want to go to a shootout after that, we can have a conversation about it. But for the gold medal game especially, let's play sudden death overtime. And let's play it until somebody scores, and we'll play it at 5-on-5. If that means you go to multiple periods beyond regulation, man, so be it. It's the gold medal game in the Olympics. So I agree with what John Cooper was saying. I think he had the right point. Him saying it right after losing in 3-on-3 overtime in the gold medal game, though, sounded like he was being a crybaby.
Yeah, it wasn't the best messenger. Jared Bednar was a better messenger when he was asked about it after practice with the Avalanche. But I agree with you. Look, 3-on-3, I get it if you're doing it in round robin. Like, I get it when you do it at the NHL level, right, during the regular season. You almost have to come up with something a little gimmicky so you can wrap games up clear. Look at baseball in the regular season. They put a freaking runner at second base to start things off. Like, you kind of have to do this so you don't have games that drag out forever in the regular season. But when it gets time to eliminate somebody from whether it be the playoffs in pro sports or, in this case, a chance at competing for a gold medal, you have to go back to your 5-on-5. What the NHL is, right? What hockey is. It is the best on best 5-on-5. I want to see the 6 best players in the world competing on the ice at any given moment during that overtime period. And I don't even want to have it settled by 3-on-3 after 10 minutes or a shootout after 10 minutes or 20 minutes. To me, it is what the NHL does during the playoffs. You go until it's over. And I think that's what they have to move to. They have to move to 5-on-5 when we get to the 2030 Olympics. Go 5-on-5 in the medal rounds until somebody scores a goal, then it's over.
We've had a few people text in that say basically this is about the schedule. Like, they've got to be able to get the closing ceremonies in at a specific time, and that's fine. I understand that. I don't care. It's not my problem. That's their problem logistically to figure out. It is the biggest event in the Olympics. It is 2026. They can find a way to figure this thing out, man. If that means playing the game a little bit earlier, so be it. But you can find a way. Or
start the hockey tournament like a day or two earlier. Because remember, they didn't start till, 4 or 5 days in to the Olympics already underway. And part of that is because they want to have practice, which I get, right? You got to practice to get to know the guys that you don't play with on any given time. But you can just, instead of starting 5 days into the Olympics, let's move it up a day and start 4 days into the Olympics. And guess what? Then the closing ceremony could have been the day after the gold medal game at the NA or with the hockey players.
Yeah, you could find a way. If you wanted to, you could. They choose not to, and I do think it's something they should look at for the next Olympics. From Ryan over on the YouTube chat. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL is a place where you can go to be involved in the graveyard chat, by the way. One of the greatest moments in U.S. sports history, and we're whining about 3-on-3. Not whining, just think that it's something that they should look into to make it even better. The tournament was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. You really couldn't have asked for better. And I do wonder what it's going to mean, just kind of big picture-wise, especially here in St. Louis, because it was on such display here with the Kachuk brothers, Keller being a part of this team. I do wonder what this is going to mean for hockey in America. Because coming off of the Miracle team, there was a pretty significant improvement in hockey in this country. And there was a greater number, a greater quantity of kids that signed up to play hockey. And since then, we've seen the result of that. I wonder what's going to come out of this. Like, is it going to have a moment that we've all wondered, would soccer have a moment here in America where it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger? And it has. It's grown in its popularity here in the States. But we talked last week, T-Bone, about which sports are in the best spot right now in terms of like their stability, their structure, where the game is at, talent, all of these different things. NFL, in my opinion, is a clear-cut number one. It's in a great spot right now. I would say right now, the NHL might be number two. And you're coming off of these Olympics, which were a moment. You look at the stars around the game right now. You've still got Crosby. You've still got like that previous era of superstars.
It's got about 3 layers of what your superstars
McDavid,
is.
McKinnon, McCarr,
and
all of those guys.
Below them, Celebrini, who had his moment in the tournament.
Brothers right
Kachuk
now.
brothers
like,
belong in that.
Every 3 to 5 years, you've got that age range of stars at that respective level. It's something that the NBA had for a little while. Now I think they've kind of aged out of that. But for a little while, when it was still Kobe and LeBron and all those guys in the league, you had that Kevin Durant. I do wonder what this is going to mean long-term for hockey in America.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, especially with a time in which you see where baseball, now it's a little different because baseball, of course, has its own season. And what I mean by that is summer, it's the only thing going on. So it helps keep its popularity. But if they go through labor issues, I mean, we saw this coming out. Baseball was saved based on the home run chase from McGuire and Sosa coming out of their labor issues in the late 90s. They were saved by that. And if they go through this again, I wonder if this is the moment for the NHL to boost into the top 3 of popularity in sports. Leapfrog Major League Baseball. I wonder if that's the moment where we can circle this as it's just continued to build momentum, keep labor peace, and have all these great moments with the cup runs that we've seen over the last couple of years with the Kachuk brothers versus McDavid and the Oilers. Everybody loves that classic matchup that's been back-to-back years on top of what we've seen from 4 nations where you have the U.S. fighting Canada in the opening face-off to then getting their revenge and winning in the Olympics. I wonder if we're seeing it be able to leap into the top 3 and leapfrog baseball in popularity in the States. And to what you said about what it means for kids watching this and getting into the game, I think this means the U.S. is here to stay at near the top, if not at the top, in hockey. I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon, and I think that's what we really saw from this. This is the moment where it is, when we circle back in, maybe it is 30 years from now, this was not a miracle on ice, but it was a moment that we can circle and say this is when the U.S.'s true dominance as the best potentially started here in the country.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into some good college hoops action from the weekend. SLU, they all but punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament with the win on Friday, and the win came because of just one crazy run in the second half. We'll get into that coming up in 15 minutes. Do want to hear from you. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Coming up next, there was a signing for the Cardinals over the weekend. It was not the signing that any of us were anticipating. Chaim Bloom explained why they went this direction and what it says about the team heading into 2026. We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
Want more Blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit Blue BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The Cardinals have made a signing, T-Bone.
Did we finally get a right-handed outfielder?
It's a right-handed bat.
Okay.
He plays second, third, and shortstop.
Okay, that's not the outfield.
And he's a former Gold Glover. His name is Ramon Urias, and he is going to be your newest infielder for the Cardinals. Chaim Bloom was on KMOX yesterday and explained the signing, doing so by starting out saying, yeah, so we've talked about adding an outfielder. Here's why we didn't add an outfielder. Take a listen.
Probably on a weekly basis, you and I have been talking about a right-handed hitting outfielder ever since we traded Wilson. And, you know, so you might say, well, this guy's an infielder. And yes, so we really felt combo of just liking the player. It's a good, competitive, professional at bat with a plus glove at a number of different positions. We obviously traded most of our starting infield from last year, so we're a little thinner in the infield than we would like. And also, obviously, we haven't seen it in games yet, but just the early work that's been taking place with guys like Fermin and Saggese in the outfield and believing in the upside of their versatility. We just saw a chance to grab someone who can help us in a number of ways, and really, when you're trying to win the way that this organization likes to win, and when you're trying to support young pitchers, which is, a rotation is a piece of this club that obviously has a chance to push us to the next level. Improving your defense is always something we'll look to do. And so we saw a nice opportunity there to improve our team.
All right, so I had a few takeaways from this signing. That audio courtesy of KMOX, as Chaim Bloom was on sports on a Sunday morning explaining the signing yesterday. My overall takeaway, this is fine. That's it. This is fine. I have zero issues with the signing. I think it's pretty smart. That's pretty much it. If we want to go a little further and we can dive into what this means for the roster, though, I do think it has some pretty significant implications for this team.
I was thinking we just end the segment on it's fine.
It's fine. It's like when they signed Kyle Gibson. I think it's fine. I got no issues with it.
And then they signed Lynn. I was like, what are we doing?
I had no issues with it, but also, what are we doing? The first other takeaway that I had, this puts some pressure on Nolan Gorman. You better perform defensively. Otherwise, you're the DH, which isn't a bad thing, because I don't think he's taking away at-bats from anybody of real significance. I like Joe Opozo. He's a fine player. He right now would probably, prior to this signing, have been penciled in as the opening day designated hitter. I think now there's a competition between Gorman and Urias to be your opening day third baseman. And if Gorman does not win that job, he's probably your opening day designated hitter. And if we're being real, I think that's probably the most likely scenario. I don't think, maybe it's hey, Pozo can just force his way into the lineup by how great he is offensively in spring training, I suppose. But I think it's more likely that Gorman ends up as DH. So that's one piece of this. Another one is, man, this really seems to suggest that they like Saggese in the outfield. Mm-hmm. Because that's his best path to significant at-bats early in the season. I don't think Lars Nootbaar is going to be ready by opening day. And I do think that Saggese, if I had to guess today, is probably your opening day left fielder, which, again, is not a problem. I'm totally fine with that. And it could be a competition between Saggese and Fermin to be your opening day left fielder. I think best case scenario is that Saggese ultimately wins that job for you heading into opening day. So I actually think this makes a lot of sense. We've talked about this a million different times of, hey, who are the right-handed hitting outfielders that are available? We went through the list. It is not inspiring. The guys mostly kind of stink, and Urias is just a better player. He is fine offensively, like slightly below league average for the most part, and a very good defender, a guy that can help you defensively, which puts less pressure on your pitchers and helps some of the young guys maybe get out of some jams that they wouldn't have otherwise with Nolan Gorman at third base. So I like the signing. I think it tells us with their actions how they're feeling about the current roster construction. I think the biggest quote-unquote loser, if you want to say that, is probably Nolan Gorman. And I don't even think he's that big of a loser because it just means that he's going to get more time at designated hitter. What did you make of the signing, T-Bone?
Yeah, my first takeaway from seeing it was, okay, this really does put some pressure on Nolan Gorman at the hot corner because Urias is a very good defender. And if you look at Nolan Gorman, from what we saw, and again, I would preface this by saying it was a small sample size towards the end of the last year, but he was not good in the corner last year at third base, and he really didn't pick it up till like the final week of the season. If we remember early on, there was a lot of weird throws, like overthrowing the first baseman or short-arming the ball over to Contreras at first base when he was at third base. And if he's not a good defender now, then he just does become a DH. And then that actually puts more pressure on him as a hitter as well, because if you're going to be a DH and you're going to be a DH only kind of, quote unquote, boy, you better have a hell of an offensive year. Otherwise, it is going to be hard to place where you're going to be on not just the Cardinals roster moving forward, but on a baseball team's roster moving forward. Because the theme of Major League Baseball over the last, decade, since I guess Ben Zobrist kind of took the league by storm, is you need a lot of guys that can be versatile. And if they're not, then they better be mashers. Like, why can Ozuna stay in the league as long as he has? Because that dude can hit as a DH. Even though he can't field worth a darn, he can mash as a designated hitter. So it puts that much more pressure on him, both to A, stay in the lineup at third base, but B, if he does lose out on that, then he really has to hit the baseball well this season. And then the second one for me was, I agree with you. I think Saggese's your left fielder now. Unless something weird happens here in spring training and he doesn't look well out there at all, but I would plan on right now saying he is the starting left fielder come opening day. And I'll be honest, I didn't see the game yesterday, but reports where he played very well at shortstop. And if he's got the range to play shortstop, he can play in the outfield. And with his athleticism, he should be fine in a corner. We'll see if that extends to center field, but I think he should be fine in left field. And I like that they're willing to say, okay, we're going to take the versatile approach here, because if this is a guy you want to learn about, the only way to get him at bats right now in this lineup construction is to put him in left field while Lars Nootbaar is injured.
We got this from the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Jeremy Hodge says Saggese is not an outfielder. Also from, which one was it? From Bill, Cardinals like to play players at multiple positions. I see that mindset has not yet changed. The Cardinals like to play utility players at multiple positions. They had Wilson Contreras exclusively at first. They had Paul Goldschmidt exclusively at first. They had Nolan Arenado exclusively at first. Harrison Bader only played in center field. By the time that Brendan Donovan became an established and plus major leaguer, he was almost exclusively at second base. He can play elsewhere if you need him to in a pinch, but he was asked to be a second baseman. When guys establish themselves at the major league level and are clearly plus players at a position, they play them there. But, yeah, to get into this league and to stay in the league, some guys like Thomas Saggese need that versatility. Some guys like Nolan Gorman require that versatility. A guy like Ramon Urias has basically created a major league career out of versatility. So those are the exact kind of players that should be playing all across the diamond, in my personal opinion. And for a guy like Thomas Saggese, this was his only path. Like, he either is a backup infielder that probably starts the season at AAA, or he goes to the outfield. If you're Thomas Saggese, what would you be doing right now?
I would like the major league paycheck, please, and I'll play left field.
I'll stay at the Ritz-Carlton instead of going down to AAA
and I get to
and
fly.
riding a bus. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to consider doing so. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if Saggese can hit. That's the biggest question for me. I don't have a whole lot of questions on if he can translate to the outfields defensively. I think people underestimate how athletic he is, and I think they underestimate the defender that he can be. We'll see what the rest of it looks like for Saggese, but I think he can potentially work out there, and if he does, we'll see what the plan is whenever Lars Nootbaar returns. But for right now, I think they're going about this in a really smart way, and I like the creativity that we've already seen from Chaim Bloom. He's willing to churn through this roster, and he's willing to clearly try some stuff to get the most out of his opening day roster. I respect that. It's something that they didn't have a whole lot in the last 5 years, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you look at this, and we saw this at times in the past under Mo, where they would just kind of let someone like this just say, okay, well, he's an infielder, so he's going to stay on the dirt. We're not even going to experiment with the outfield. We're going to keep him on the dirt. And then you look at it and go, okay, well, where's he playing then if this is the case? Right? This was a guy that was clearly an asset that you somewhat valued when you acquired him in the trade for, I believe it was Jordan Montgomery, coming from Texas. He's been a top 100 prospect in the past. I think he was 88 at his highest. So this is a guy that would carry value around the league. The question is, can you find playing time for him? And rather than just saying, well, no, we'll see what Gorman does, we'll wait 2 months, and then maybe we'll get him some playing opportunities, you create the opportunity for him and allow the player to show off his athleticism. And you know what? If he can't play in the outfield here in spring training, then we'll have a conversation about where he can really get playing time. But for right now, this is the time to experiment with it, especially when you've got clearly that spot looks like it's going to be open by the time we get to opening day. It doesn't seem Nootbaar's going to be ready. Yeah, find out if he can play it. Find out if Fermin can play it, you know. If Ferrario, I know this wasn't what they were actually doing. He was just taking fly balls because he was bored. But you know what? If they decided, hey, tomorrow Herrera's going to take fly balls in left field because we just want to have a backup plan ready. If it failed a catcher, I'd say, okay, good. That makes sense, right?
Agreed.
You might as well find a way to get guys into the lineup rather than just sitting on your hands going, well, I guess we don't have an opportunity for him and we don't want him to be a bench bat, so he'll go down to the minors so he can play every day. Well, that gets you nothing out of a player like a Thomas Saggese.
From the 314, having versatile players hasn't worked. Play the players at their natural positions. Come on. Okay. Thomas Saggese, natural shortstop. You playing him?
No.
You just want to play him over Mason Wynn then?
No.
Because that's the path. That's how he can get onto the field at his natural position, is by playing at shortstop. Sometimes guys have to learn new positions in order to fit into the major league roster. Otherwise, you're trading them, and you'll just continue to have. Like the reality is, most of these guys that make it to the big leagues, their natural position is catcher, pitcher, or shortstop, because that's where a lot of the best players play when they're in youth baseball. So you will just end up having a bunch of dudes that get traded elsewhere. The Cardinals are doing, in my opinion, the exact right thing with Thomas Saggese. I think this is the best way to get him real opportunities at the major league level. We did, though, have a couple of questions that I think are fair. It's understandable. T-Bone, some texters are wondering, is this going to be their excuse to not have a guy like J.J. Weatherholt on the opening day roster? How do you think, if at all, this impacts J.J. Weatherholt's ability to make the opening day roster?
I still think odds are he is going to be on the opening day roster. I think this was a signing of at least creating some competition more for Gorman than it was for Weatherholt, but also in the back of their front office's mind, if he does look completely out of place at spring training and he looks overwhelmed, then at least you still have a path to where Urias can be your starting second baseman. But I don't think this signing was made out of manipulating the service time clock on J.J. Weatherholt. I think this was to bring in competition for Gorman at the hot corner.
I think it was about the first month of the season. I think they know Lars is probably not going to be ready to go, which means like you're looking at Urias, Pozo, Fermin, and then like Saggese versus Church. Maybe that's the competition we haven't been talking enough about, is the possibility that Nathan Church gets bumped down to AAA and Thomas Saggese ends up in the big leagues because of this kind of a move. Like that's possible. Or Church just ends up getting on the big league roster, and that's the guy that takes this spot from Lars Nootbaar.
I think this created two competitions on the bench. I don't even know if created is the right word, but Fermin / Prito, I think, are competing for a roster spot. And then I think it comes down to the fourth outfielders between Church, Torres, and Velasquez, who is the minor league contract non-roster invitee. I think that is the competition on the bench, because I think right now I would pencil in Urias just as a guy. I mean, he's making the roster, so you pencil him in. You pencil in Gorman and say JC into this. Your bench is probably Pozo, Pajes, and then those two roster spots that I mentioned as competitions.
Yeah, it's coming together. It feels as though we have a pretty good idea on what it's going to be. I agree with you. I don't think that J.J. Weatherholt's going down to the minor leagues. I think he's going to be at the big league level. I think he's starting at second base, and I think he will do so on opening day.
And I think they think he is so ready that they think he can potentially earn them an extra draft pick for the way he's going to play this season. You can only get that if he starts the year with the Cardinals on opening day.
In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers, but next, SLU all but punched its ticket to the NCAA Tournament with their win on Friday. How'd they do it? What does it mean for them? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tune in every Friday from 11 to 2 as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federico's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. And presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea. 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Thursday night, Blues and Kraken. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Team USA triumphs in Italy. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Yesterday's men's hockey Olympic gold medal contest delivered in spades. United States 2, Canada 1, overtime style at Santa Giulia Arena. Colin Hellebuck stopped 41 of the 42 shots he faced, while Jordan Binnington made 26 saves. Binnington's Blues resume play February 26th versus Seattle. Cardinals spring training game number 3 kicking off roughly 30 minutes from now. Michael McGreevy will start this afternoon against Miami, with Mason Wynn batting leadoff. St. Louis also signed infielder Ramon Urias before its Grapefruit League opening loss to Washington. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
St. Louis is going to win it. Whoa, it's St. Louis, and now a little bit of activity going at the end of this. And you just don't want to see this happen. As they're trying to separate everyone here. Not what you need in this highly contested game here this late at all. And they're trying to get everybody back to the respective benches.
That's what it sounded like on the Billikens Radio Network alongside T-Bone and Bradford. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. SLU gets a huge win on Friday night. That's the way that it came to an end. It was a bummer of a finish, just because, that's not what the game should have been remembered for. The game should have been remembered for the unbelievable run that SLU was able to go on in order to win that game. They have this ability to, over any 5-minute stretch, just completely dominate the opposition in a way that very few teams can. They were down by 6 with 12 minutes left to go in that game. In the first half, I was actually kind of worried about SLU. I was like, this is another slow start. Feels like we've seen a lot of these. And VCU might be good enough to take advantage of it, where they can just hold on in the second half. Nope, not the case. Down by 6, 12 minutes to go. Then they go on an 18-2 run over the next 4 minutes, and they find a way to win once again. T-Bone, to me, biggest takeaway from it is twofold. 1, ridiculous run. 2, that's the kind of win that secures your at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. I see very few paths to SLU missing out on the tournament at this point. Now you're kind of playing for seeding more than you are for the right to get a berth into the NCAA tournament. What did you take away from their 88-75 win over VCU?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that win locked them into at least an at-large bid at the NCAA tournament, even if they don't end up winning the A-10 tournament, unless of some kind of spectacular collapse down the home stretch. Like they lose 4 in a row here. Okay, we'll have a conversation. They're too good to do that. I do have some concerns about their slow starts that we have started to see be a theme, because you can get away with this in the A-10, right? Even against a VCU. And don't get me wrong, what they did in the second half was special. Anytime you put up 55 points on somebody in one half, that's absurd. But if this team is going to be able to go on one of those runs that we talk about, like getting to the Sweet 16 potentially, or even further, maybe in the Elite 8 run possibly, it's going to come down to they got to get off to faster starts, because when you get to March, especially where it looks like they're playing, and seeding will be big for them if they want to try and get up to that 6 line, if it's possible for them, because if they get a 7 or even an 8 seed, second round you're going up against a 1 or a 2. And as we talked about on Friday, anybody that's on that 1 or 2 line, and there's even an argument for some teams that are on the 3 line, those are true potential national title contenders, and you might be able to get away with a slow start in the A-10 or even in your first round matchup, depending on who it is. Like I've seen Georgia kind of floating around one of the lines near them. You can probably get away with a slow start there. you're not getting away with a slow start against one of the better teams in the country if you run into them in the second round. So the slow starts is a bit of an issue that is starting to worry me about them potentially going on a run past the second weekend of the tournament.
I think they're probably looking at a 6 or a 7, depending on how they finish out the season, and the difference is massive between the two. And not the first round. I agree with you, T-Bone. They'll probably be able to take advantage of whoever their first round matchup is, regardless of if they're a 6 or a 7 seed. Second round is where it really changes things. Here are the 2 seeds, according to Bracket Matrix, most likely as of today. UConn, Iowa State, Illinois, Purdue. Every single one of those, you go on a bad run for a 10-minute stretch, it's over.
Yeah, they'll put you away.
The 3 seeds, Florida, Kansas, all right, they can do that. Nebraska, Gonzaga. You could beat those teams potentially. There's a significant difference in the quality of those opponents on the latter stage, the second half of those 3 seeds. That's where things start to flip a little bit. Then you get into the 4 seeds, and it's like Michigan State's really good, but who knows? Vandy, Virginia, Texas Tech, they're a little bit more erratic. You don't know what you're going to get night to night for them. So I do think the seeding is going to be a significant conversation with SLU, and finding a way to beat VCU on Friday allowed them to keep the dream alive of getting up to that 6 seed. Had you lost that game, you are probably talking more about an 8-9, maybe getting up to a 7 as being like the high point. And if you're in that 8-9 line, now you're talking about going up against one of Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Houston in the second round. Good luck. Good night. It's game over for you.
No, and you also found a way to reintegrate one of your individual standouts on Friday night, too, Kellen Thames. How great was that to see? I don't think it was any coincidence, guys, that basically the run began with the emergence of Kellen Thames going off. This is somebody whose minutes have been managed curiously. He's been deployed, I would say, curiously in the mid-teens to low 20s all season. But then again, you haven't seen much from him, period, since that George Washington win about a month ago. To go 7 of 8, to be deadly efficient. Oh, yeah, to rack up a season high 5 steals in addition to the 16 points. This is somebody who, if you're SLU right now and you're looking for secondary sources, right, of scoring and getting off to even decent, remotely decent starts, that's been an issue for the last month or so of conference play, I would contend. To see that sort of effort going into the stretch run of A-10 play, that's exactly what Josh Schertz needed.
On the other side of things, T-Bone, we'll get into your Illini here in a little while, but for Mizzou, they go down to Arkansas, and it was one of the more impressive losses of the season for Mizzou. They were right there with a team that I think is as talented as just about anybody in the country and is playing some of the best basketball of anybody in the country right now in Arkansas. They didn't get enough out of their guards, did Mizzou. T.O. Barrett was not very good over the weekend. I wonder if he's still dealing with some of those flu-like symptoms that he had earlier in the week. Anthony Robinson was Anthony Robinson of this year. It's been disappointing, but it is what it is. You can't really expect much more at this point. So they didn't get enough out of those 2 guys, and then you add in Jaden Stone, who wasn't his usual self. That's what you get when you're going up against a team that has Darius Acuff, who's one of the best players in the country. And they lost on the road by 8, and they had every opportunity to win the game. Pretty damn impressive, man. It's the first time in a while that I've looked at the team, not just based upon their resume, but also based upon the quality of the basketball that they've been playing lately. I think they're starting to look like an NCAA tournament team. Not a contender to do anything of meaning in the NCAA tournament, but a team that you're like, yeah,
they belong.
They belong with other teams that are on that bubble, but like on the right side of the bubble now. They played really well against Vanderbilt, got that win. I understand they had to hold on for dear life to get it, but they played well enough to earn that win. And then they were right there on the road, tough place to play, weekend game, raucous environment against one of the best players in the country, and they had every chance to win it. If you go 2-2 down the stretch, you get 2 wins, Mississippi State and Oklahoma being the most likely, but I think they could beat Tennessee later this week as well. You do that, I think you're in the NCAA tournament if you're a Mizzou fan.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've gone back and forth, and I think we've both settled on like 10 conference wins probably is the magic number that gets you in there, and that's what you're talking about, 2-2 there in the home stretch to get you there. But the fact that they were able to stay in this basketball game with Arkansas, who I think is the second best team in the conference behind Florida, without getting good guard play, is a testament that maybe things are starting to click their way. And Bradford was telling me while you were in Disney World of, hey, they're starting to play well. They're starting to kind of piece this thing together a little bit. And I was going, I'm betting on them not to make the NCAA tournament. I'm starting to become a little bit of a believer. I agree. No means do I think they're going on a run. I'm betting against them no matter who they play in the first round. But I now think they at least are starting to look the part of the team that is on the right side of that bubble. And I expect that they're going to win at least 2, if not 3 of their next 4.
And BK, in spite of what you didn't get on Saturday, obviously, from the starting backcourt, specifically Teo Barrett, one of the bigger reasons, if you're a Missouri enthusiast right now, for optimism heading into tomorrow night's game, back at home against Tennessee, this coming weekend, moving down the stretch, the fact that Mark Mitchell is becoming an elite playmaker in every sense of the word, okay? Not just filling it up. We understand Arkansas defensively didn't have an answer for him in the first half, 18 points. But then what progressively happened until the last couple of minutes of that game in the second half, Mizzou was in it because now as a playmaker, as a facilitator, Mark Mitchell is suddenly dropping dimes left and right. He's got the vision. He's luring the double teams into his space and then finding Burns, etc., for easy buckets at the basket. His ascension in the second half of this season, I think we all knew coming into the year, in order for Mizzou to be competent in the SEC, you needed a great year from Mark Mitchell. But personally, to me, he has exceeded my expectations. It honestly made me question, too, if he can play at the next level.
Yeah, he's been great. I don't know that he's an NBA player, but I think he could have a hell of a career overseas. And that's, hey, man, at this point in time, you can make a really nice living by doing that. I think that's what Robbie Avila is going to be long term. I think he's a really nice professional basketball player overseas. And you can carve yourself out a nice chunk of money by going over and doing that and seeing some of the most beautiful places on earth like that. It's not a bad way to live. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming up next.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with the First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
Hey, it's BK. I hope you were able to take advantage of all the action that we've had over the last couple of weeks in the Winter Olympics. I know for Team USA, yesterday had a little bit of action over on the Underdog app. It's the best place to get in on all of the action, and right now you can make entries and win money right here in the state of Missouri. You can even do it on spring training. That's right, Cardinals versus the Marlins here in just a little bit, and I am going lower on Michael McGreevy's strikeouts for the day at 1.5. I'm going higher on Uri Perez strikeouts at 1 or more. You put that together, it's about 2-to-1 odds because I've got a 30% profit boost over on the Underdog app. You can get in on the action as well, whether you want it to be spring training, maybe you like something on the NBA side of things, college basketball. It's all available for you on Underdog. Download the app today. Sign up using our promo code, which is BKO. That's promo code BKO. You can score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 or older, present in Missouri. Terms do apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. Here in just about 10 minutes, we'll talk about Robert Thomas. He's apparently been dealing with the injury that he had repaired over this break since late last season. What does that mean? What does it tell us about how we should expect him to perform the rest of the way? We'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. But T-Bone, before we get to some of these questions, do want to pass along the morning skate lines for the Blues. This is according to Matthew DeFranks of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Earlier today, Sonny and Fabry were the extras. Robert Thomas was taking morning skate. He was flanked by Berggren and Joseph, so still not one of the top four lines, but out there nonetheless. Your top three lines for today: Holloway with Shin and Snuggie, Neighbors with Booch and Kyrou. Booch continuing to play at the center position as we talked about last week. Torpo with Finley and Walker, and then defensively you've got Tucker and Falk, Fowler and Mayu, and Kessel with Bortuzzo. Yes, you heard that correctly. Bortuzzo is your sixth defenseman today. It is not expected that he's going to rejoin the team. They just needed the extra body. He said, I'll go out there.
Good for Bortz, though, to get out there. What a team player from the front office.
What year is this?
All right, let's get to this from the 636. Guys, is Connor McDavid currently the Chris Paul and Dan Marino of pro sports? I asked you guys this question off the air. What is the comparison for Connor McDavid? Because he consistently gets to, whether it's a gold medal game or a Stanley Cup final, and then loses. And it's not because he's been bad. It's not like he's a choke artist. He's performing really well. His teams just come up short. And I don't think there are very many comparisons for a guy with a similar resume in the postseason.
Yeah, I think he is the first part of that question from the texter. Paul was a good one who just retired because Chris Paul was a hell of a player in his career at the NBA level. The one that I can think of, and looking at his numbers, he's been awesome. So this matches kind of who I was thinking of from a baseball perspective is Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's been on some really good teams with the Washington Nationals, and now he's been in Philly, who's been a title contender since 2022, 2021, somewhere in that range. And his career numbers in the playoffs: 274 batting average, 390 on base, 596 slug. That's a 986 OPS. And he hasn't been able to get over the top. And now it's only going to get harder for him since the Dodgers are in the National League. He's the first player that kind of came to my mind when thinking of this. But that's the only one that I can really think of right now. Because there's some guys that, like, they're part of the problem.
Sure.
Like James Harden's another guy that I think of as, like, a great player that hasn't got a ring. But he's part of the problem. Like, I can tell you now, the Cavs aren't winning the title because he's probably not going to play defense.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like the Chris Paul comp because he did. A lot of people tend to forget. Made it to the finals one time in his career, and coincidentally, Phoenix dropped a 2-0 advantage to Milwaukee. It was 2021, whereas Dan Marino, his zenith was in year number one in Miami. Never got back to that hallowed territory in the postseason. So those are pretty appropriate, even though I think you have the opportunity to see McDavid in his sport hit a longer, more extended peak than either of those guys.
I would go Josh Allen as the current player. That's the closest, but he doesn't have the Super Bowl appearance, so it does fall a little bit flat there. It's not a player comparison, but I mentioned to you guys, I think the closest thing in professional sports right now to what we're seeing with Connor McDavid is actually Kyle Shanahan, who has reached the Super Bowl twice as a head coach and once as an offensive coordinator, and has been like on the cusp of getting that Super Bowl basically all three times, and just hasn't been able to get over the top. And it's not because of him necessarily, but you can kind of nitpick on certain things that he does as a play caller. But yeah, it's not a one-for-one because he's not a player. He's a coach, so it does feel quite different. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 618. Is there a way to even predict who might play in the first round of the St. Louis March Madness bracket? I bought my tickets for the Friday sessions. I'm excited to see who I'm going to be seeing. There's really no way to predict it, no, right now. You're at the mercy of who the committee decides to put in the city of St. Louis. I think there's a pretty decent chance, though, that Illinois will be here because they'll be one of the protected teams regionally. It makes a lot of sense for them, and they'll be a 1 or a 2 seed most likely once they get to the NCAA tournament. So I think Illinois is very likely, but not a lock for St. Louis.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to find out 100%. I'm with you there. I think the 2 teams that I'm leaning at least that are probably going to be here as the 2 seeds for that regional protection that you're talking about is probably 1, Illinois, and then I think the second one is going to be Iowa State. Iowa State, if Kansas can get up to a 2, they might be able to get over here to St. Louis, but I can't remember if there's one in Kansas City or not this year. If there's one in Kansas City, they might go there. But I think it's Iowa State, Illinois would be the favorites right now.
Don't believe Kansas City is in play this year, but Illinois, you could also envision, obviously, United Center, 27th and 29th. That's a regional, too.
Let's send them there.
For real.
I got tickets to this as well. I want to see them here.
From the 314, last question here. From the 314, aside from the top 4 teams, which are Michigan, Duke, Arizona, and Houston, who would you bet on today to win the national championship in college basketball? This is a tough year for this, man. I don't think I can trust Illinois defensively at this point enough to put a bet on them to win the title. If I was going outside of that group, Iowa State would be a team that I'd be interested in. Florida would be a team that I'm interested in. Those would probably be the top 2 that I would look at. I would potentially take a look at Kansas, by the way.
That's who I was going to say. But the problem is I just don't know what Peterson's going to do, right? If he's playing and he's got like no minutes restrictions, I would hammer them on a futures bet to win the national championship. They are that good when he is available. Problem is, I have no faith in if he's going to be available or not. If I wasn't taking them, something about Hurley when he gets to March, I could see UConn being another team that could go on a run. Those would be the 2 teams that I would really hone in on.
Let me give you another Final Four option. I'm not saying this team could go the entire way, but there is not a team in the nation right now that is hotter than St. John's. 13 wins in a row with Pitino last season. We heard a lot of buzz. I understand the conference, the Big East. I understand it is down relatively speaking. But last year, this was supposed to be a team to make a deep run. Didn't ultimately materialize. A lot of guys have returned playing its best basketball at this point in the season. And you've got UConn and St. John's this Wednesday night.
St. John's just doesn't score.
Well,
they can't shoot, and they don't score.
Wasn't that their problem last year, too?
Yep. That's a really tough recipe once you get into the tournament. I understand the defense is superb, as it always is for Pitino, but if you can't score it, man, and especially this year, there are going to be teams that are going to put up – they're going to be able to score buckets on you. Even against the great defense that St. John's has, you run into Duke or Michigan or Illinois or – Purdue, Iowa State, some of these teams are just able to score it in a way that I don't think that defense is going to be able to get it done.
And most years, not most years, but over the last couple of years, it feels like offense is what you really have to have when you get to the tournament, right? We've seen some teams like about, what was it, a decade ago almost at this point now, where Virginia could win it by playing that just defense. Let's make this as ugly as possible, and they were able to win it all.
Bennett ball.
Now it's like, man, college basketball is becoming the NBA when it comes to the shooting, man. Like, there are some really good teams that can score, to BK's point. You're not going to be able to stop them enough to be able to win multiple times, by the way, which is what it's going to take to get to a national championship.
And that's why sometimes, too, I'm not exactly enamored with Houston, because a lot of games in the high 60s, 70s, you just saw that against Arizona Saturday.
Alongside Bradford and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. But next, Robert Thomas has apparently been dealing with this injury that he got repaired since last season. Does it change at all the way that we've evaluated his year this year? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament, hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament, featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Some news in the NFL. The Falcons are planning to franchise tag tight end Kyle Pitts. They'll keep him in the fold for a $15 million fully guaranteed 2026 deal. They're hoping to work out some kind of a longer-term deal, but as of right now, he will at least be back in Atlanta on a one-year, $15 million deal. Also news in the NFL, the Cowboys, as expected, are planning to franchise tag George Pickens. That's the news in the NFL. On the Blues side of things, got some interesting reporting over the weekend, T-Bone. According to multiple reports, people covering the team, Robert Thomas has been dealing with his injury that he got repaired since last season. It's apparently something that became very painful for him to deal with, and they finally decided, you know what, let's go ahead and get this taken care of. And it'll be best for you, not only for the here and now, but also for the long term, to just be done with this. Does that change at all the way that you've evaluated his season, now knowing, okay, maybe some of this lack of production, this performance, was because he was dealing with an injury of some level of significance, clearly, based on the fact that he had to get surgery on it?
Yeah, it does a little bit, seeing that now he's been apparently dealing with this all season long. It does kind of explain the dip in production for him, because we have seen this in the past with guys when they deal with injuries, that they're just not the same guy during that stretch of time. Like, I remember... I can't remember who it was, like Booch, I think, was dealing with an injury last year, and his numbers were down at early portions of the season. Holloway, even recovering from the injury, you could see he was not himself. So it does kind of make some sense, but I still think I listen on Robert Thomas and see if I get blown out of the water when it comes to the trade deadline and the trade discussions, even though this does explain his production this season. I still think you have to listen on all the members of your core because of where you're at in the standings and the fact that this hasn't worked for the last 4 seasons. So I still think you're listening. Do I think the Blues are moving him? Probably not, but I think you still have to listen on him because you still have to change this core, in my opinion.
I don't feel that way. I think if somebody, is crazy and gives you way more than what is reasonable, sure, I would listen to anybody, including Jimmy Snuggerud. If somebody's willing to offer you the world for him, it's kind of my job to at least be curious what's out there. Realistically, though, what the offers are probably going to be, I don't think I'm trading Robert Thomas this year. I think I would like to see him, A, healthy, and B, with a legitimate sniper on one side. It's something that we have been critical of the Blues for a number of years. I've certainly been singing this tune for a while now. I just don't know that you've been able to take advantage of his greatest gift, which is his ability to distribute the puck, when he hasn't had these God-given goal scorers on his side. So for me, I'd like to see him get back to being a healthy player once again, see if that looks better, just in terms of the eye test. And then let's see what you get in this top 3 of the NHL draft. Find out what it looks like if you're able to add a Stenberg to the mix, or if you're able to get the top college kids in the mix, whoever it may be. I'd like to find out first before I make that decision that I can't take it back. If I'm wrong and it just doesn't work for him with whoever that player is that you add into the mix, whatever, he's still going to have value. He's a good defensive center who at worst, even right now, should be viewed as a solid to good number 2 center in the NHL. I don't think that's changing. So I'm not going to miss out on a bunch of value by waiting to trade him. It just means that I allow myself more outs to potentially be right on it. And I don't think there's a whole lot of risk of you being big wrong on Robert Thomas.
And I just asked this as a follow-up question, if you don't end up with a top pick, let's say they play well here in the second half and they end up with 4th in the lottery odds, and then they move down to 6th because the ping pong balls don't bounce their way. Does that change with what your plan is with Thomas in the offseason? Because anytime we talk about adding that elite sniper with him, and I get that argument,
sure,
is, okay, well, they're going to end up with a McKinnon or a Stenberg. But if you end up on the outside of the top 3, and even if it is outside of the top 5, which is possible for the Blues if they play well in the home stretch, does that change at all the conversation? And the reason I ask that is because I don't know how you're acquiring that God-given goal scorer without that top pick, because these guys don't become available on the market hardly ever. They either re-sign with their team or they get traded somewhere where they sign a contract extension. And it's hard for me to see where you're going to give away the assets to go get that guy, because right now I don't know who would be available. So does that change at all if they were to move down in the order?
Could be, yeah.
And that's a conversation for the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm not doing it now. Like, all of these things, I just need more information. I need more information on, was it the injury that prevented him from getting back to what he was last year? Is it the lack of support on that top line that is also playing into it? And when you combine the two, well, those aren't excuses. They would be explanations as to why he's not reaching the ceiling that we all thought was there for him for the St. Louis Blues. Are there other issues here? Like, are there dynamics inside of the locker room? Possibly. And that stuff we're just not privy to on the outside looking in. I just want to see more. I want to see what this looks like down the stretch of this year, how the lottery goes for you, how that falls, and then you can make a decision on what the future looks like for Robert Thomas. I just don't see why there would be any urgency to get this kind of a deal done in season, when it's still going to be there for you next year, or this offseason, still going to be there for you next year at the trade deadline, still going to be there for you next year in the offseason. There is no rush to get this kind of a deal done for Robert Thomas. There have been reports that have come out of the last 48 hours from national media saying, hey, maybe Jordan Kyrou's willing to waive his no-trade clause. That one I'm more willing to have the conversation on. Jordan Binnington, coming off of this unbelievable run for him in the tournament, maybe you have a conversation there. Justin Falk, Braden Shin, those are talks that I'm willing to have right now, and that I think you should have, especially based upon the kinds of packages that could be available for them, according to Jeremy Rutherford's piece earlier today over in The Athletic. Those are the names that I think should realistically be in the rumor mill for the Blues. Robert Thomas, for me, would be one guy that I'll listen, see what's out there. The odds of me dealing him are minimal.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm definitely with you on the Falk, Shen. Those names should be out there. Honestly, even with Binnington, I think that one makes sense for him being out there. Kyrou, I'm open to. Thomas is one I'm still listening on, and I'm still like, I agree. There's no sense of urgency in moving him. But if someone comes with me to the offer, I'd say, yeah, okay, I'm willing to make this happen now during the trade deadline, and we'll figure it out as we move along in this rebuild of what you're doing, since it didn't work over the last 4 years. But yeah, Kyrou's the one that I'm most fascinated by the time we get to the deadline. I think Falk's going to be gone. Shen's going to be gone. Binnington will be interesting to see. But Kyrou's the one that, as the vultures start to circle around more and more, I wonder if they do try and pull this off at the deadline and see. Now, it's complicated with the money in, money out situation potentially for the Blues, but I think he's not going to be here by the time we get to the opening face-off for next season.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, the two most encouraging signs from the weekend were two different pitching developments. We'll tell you about them coming up at 12:30. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for In or Out next here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2012, the Blues would defeat the Nashville Predators 3-2 in a shootout. Blues got the scoring started. Chris Stewart's 13th of the year. Nashville would take a one-goal lead in the second period, but Vladimir Sobotka would even things up late in the second. Then no goal scored until a shootout where TJ Oshie and Andy McDonald both picked up goals, and Yaroslav Halak got the victory in the shootout.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
Then nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. Before we get to that, want to mention something from the Cardinals game
what
that
happened?
our guy T-Bone noticed in the first inning.
Way to make me the bringer of doom.
I mean, it's a good thing to notice.
I know, but couldn't you take credit for it?
Michael McGreevy threw exactly one pitch in the first inning over 90 miles per hour. It was the first pitch. It was a 90.7 mile per hour fastball. His sinkers in the first inning, 89, 89, 89, end of the inning. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is something to monitor. I was curious, how does this compare with where he was at this point last year? First start of the spring, his fastball velo in that first inning, 92, 94, 93, 92. Slightly different.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see what that looks like when he comes back out for the second inning. If he's able to regain form, just a weird first inning for him, whatever, write it off. If not, keep an eye on it. Again, not the end of the world. Something to monitor as we progress through spring. That's the kind of stuff that I do care about, T-Bone. It's not the results so much as it is, all right, what's going on here? Why is the velo down? Because 89 mile an hour, that's where you start to talk about the fastball not being good enough to play up.
Exactly. And it's not like he is a guy that gets a ton of swing and miss, but even that, you saw this with Wainwright towards the back end of his career. The more and more you lose on it, the less and less effective that pitch becomes. It's something to keep an eye on going into the second inning today, but won't be something of serious concern until we get into about start 3 or 4 for him of spring training. And then if it's still a thing, then it becomes a talking point by the time we get to opening day.
Splashback Deuce says on the YouTube chat, it's February 23rd. Sure is. It was February 26th of last year when he was throwing 93, 94 miles an hour in the first inning. Again, not the end of the world. I'm just relaying the information to you guys. You get to determine how big of a deal it is to you. For me, it's something that at least piques my interest. It makes me wonder, what is the reason for this? Are there underlying issues here? Or is it just something that he had maybe a different offseason program this year because he knows he's not necessarily competing for a spot in the rotation this time around? Whereas last year, he was trying to make the opening day roster if he could. So it's a different situation for him. That would be understandable.
For context, Yuri Perez, who does throw a lot harder than Michael McGreevy, is right at his season average from a year ago in his first inning, which he just completed, where he's sitting right at 97.6, where last year he was at 97.9 for most of the season.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. T-Bone, will start out with this one. In or out, Illinois, SLU, and Mizzou will all make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament.
Boy, it's so funny. I was just kind of thinking if maybe this was going to be my in or out. I will say out. I am still not going to bet Missouri gets into the second. They can get into the tournament, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to win a game once they get there. I'm losing a little faith in SLU because of these slow starts, but I think they can win in the first round. Mizzou's the one, though, that I'm going to just say out. I don't think all three are.
I'm out because I have nearly as many reservations about SLU getting to the second round as I do with respect to Mizzou. I've been on record. I do feel as if the Tigers, they're making it to the big dance, but the only team in which still, Tanner, I have confidence to move beyond the round of 32 into 16 and beyond would be Illinois. I think a lot of it's going to be matchup-oriented, guys, with respect to SLU in round number 1. Even if you're talking about that 6-7 territory, it could be dicey if you go up against a team from the Big 10, maybe even the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm going to say out as well. I think either Mizzou or SLU could lose in that first round. SLU has a couple of matchups that would make me a little bit nervous in the first round, a potential 7-10, 8-9 type of range. Mizzou, just everything will make me nervous about where they're going to be at in the first round of the tournament. So I'll say out as well. T-Bone?
Guys, in or out? The Cardinals' starting outfield on opening day will be Thomas Saggese, Victor Scott, Jordan Walker.
In. I think that's what it looks like.
I'm in as well. When you roll it out there, March 26th, right, against Tampa Bay. Saggese in left field. I don't care. It's going to be McClanahan in all likelihood, right, for Tampa Bay. It doesn't matter because you're going to have Nolan Gorman entrenched where in all likelihood? Designated hitter or so we think. Yeah, give it to me.
I think I'm in as well. Until I see him in the outfield look really bad, even if he's average, I think he's, in reminder, he would play up. If he's average down in spring training, he's probably going to play up when he gets to Busch because of how hard it is to play the outfield with the wind that's gusting there in Jupiter. I think he's going to be the left fielder. This signing of Urias seems to point out that they think that Saggese and Fermin are going to be viewed as outfielders to start the season.
Bradford?
All right, guys, in our open today, we touched upon the sports story of the moment. Team USA prevailing to win the gold yesterday in Milan. I want to broaden the scope as it relates to the NHL. So in the second half of the season, last year's President's Trophy winning team in Winnipeg, currently 11 games behind in the race for the second wild card spot out west. It manages a rally behind Connor Hellebuyck and finds a way to qualify for the postseason. In or out?
So in or out, Winnipeg makes playoffs?
Yeah.
Out.
26 games to go?
Yeah.
Reinvigorated Hellebuyck?
Out.
Healthy?
They are 11 points back.
Yeah.
And they stink. And they're going to sell at the deadline. I'm out. I don't think they're a playoff. I think the best playoff series from last year in the first round, and arguably potentially the entire playoffs, was Blues Jets, and both of them will be golfing by the time the Stanley Cup playoffs start.
I like the Kings. I like the Kings in that second to last or first wild card spot. Do you really trust a team, a young team like Anaheim, to keep it going there? I think there could be a rally.
Kings with Fiala being hurt now.
You have a lot of teams to leapfrog. Why can't this team, with the first line alone, make a run? Why not?
The rest of the roster stinks.
Yeah, what T-Bone said. That's my honest to God opinion. They have three guys that have scored 27, 25, and 21 goals. Scheifele, Connor, Velarde, those guys rock. Next best player on the team is Morrissey with 10.
What's been the biggest difference this year? It is striking.
Honestly, it's really just Hellebuyck has not been the MVP. He has an .897 save percentage this season. That's the biggest difference.
And then
last year he was the MVP.
Yeah.
This year he hasn't been.
And then who'd they lose in free agency? Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
The Ehlers.
Ehlers. That hurt them too because he was on their second line, and that was a killer as well for a team that didn't have that much depth.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out on 101 ESPN. Guys, in or out? By the end of May, at least one of Gorman, Walker, Weatherholt, or Scott will get multiple consecutive days off or will be sent down to get right due to early season struggles.
Out. I don't think Weatherholt, Gorman, Scott, who's the other one? Oh, Walker. I think all those guys are up here to play through their struggles this time around. Now, could they get like back-to-back days off because they want to work on something in the cage? Sure. But that happens for a lot of guys. That happens for veterans. I mean, this happened to Goldie at times in like 2023, 2024 towards the end. But I'm out on this. They are not sending these guys down. I think they want them all up here working on their struggles to try and prove that they're big leaguers. Weatherholt might be the one they consider, but I think they'd rather have him up here learning on the fly.
Working through the struggles at the major league level because you love everything you've heard so far about Weatherholt's mental makeup. If he runs into some obstacles, so be it. Give him a day, maybe two, but I don't see any of those three going down.
I think it's in because there was also the out of they could get multiple days off in a row to work behind the scenes, and I think that's very likely. I do not think these guys will be sent down, but could Gorman or Walker get a couple of days off? Yeah, I think that's pretty likely. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. In or out, Shohei Ohtani will win at least 2 more MVP awards.
Oh, I'm in on that. I mean, it's only going to get quote-unquote easier for him because now he's back to being a full-time pitcher on top of being a hitter. Last year, he was able to do it, and he didn't pitch till, what, July, if I'm not mistaken? So, yeah, I'm in. I think he wins at least 2 more.
I'm totally in. He's only 31 right now, and this only becomes a conversation piece, frankly, if voters get a little disinterested, a la what you could have said with Jordan, with LeBron a few years ago, giving it to somebody else just because. But here's the difference. You're coming back once again. You're going to be winning 10-plus games on the mound. It's an automatic pro when you add in everything offensively, too.
Sweep it in or out. The Battlehawks will switch stadiums and play at Energizer Park sooner rather than later. Did you guys see the story from over the weekend?
I did not.
I guess the UFL owner said he would like the Battlehawks to switch from the Dome to Energizer Park. I heard TMA talked about it earlier today, and I thought it was interesting that they mentioned, hey, I think this has been talked about, and I think City basically said, not interested.
Yeah.
So would the Battlehawks like to do it? I could totally see that. It makes more sense for them. It's the right capacity for the kind of crowd that they generally get. And it's a great atmosphere. Like, that stadium rocks compared to the Dome, which is not in the best of shape at this point and wasn't 15 years ago. So I'm in that they would like to. I'm out that they actually get the opportunity to do so. I don't think City will agree to it.
That's where I'm at as well. Would the Battlehawks love it? Absolutely. To your point on the Dome, I remember not being in great shape when I went as a kid watching the St. Louis Rams. So I can't imagine what it's like now with the Battlehawks in there. City doesn't want to do this, right? And I don't even think the MLS wants them to do this. I think the MLS wants to kind of separate out to where these stadiums are meant just for, we're playing soccer in here, and maybe you can bring some concerts. We don't want football coming into these venues.
I'm out on this one. How would the UFL, if we really care about it, feel about this as well? What about
what a
the
shot at the
league
Battlehawks.
championship? The league championship game, it must be held at the Dome, right?
No. They would like to play at a better stadium if possible.
True.
A little bit of information to relay. Michael McGreevy in the second inning has come out. His fastball is hitting 90-91, so not as concerning, but still definitely down from where it was at this point last year. We'll be curious to hear what he was thinking with this. It could very simply be, hey, I felt exhausted by the end of last season. I wanted to come in, give myself more time to get into season shape, and I felt like I could do that throughout the course of the spring. See what he decides to say about that, but will be interesting. All right, alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer, but next, the two most encouraging signs from the weekend were two different pitching developments. We'll tell you what they were next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Sarah Cramper from St. Peters, Missouri. She is our 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
out your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
McGreevy makes spring debut for Redbirds. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals and Marlins are underway at Roger Dean Stadium. A 1-1 contest through 1+ innings as Michael McGreevy draws this afternoon's starting assignment. He served up Jacob Marcy's game-opening solo shot. Then Jose Fermin doubled in Alec Burleson. Weekend hoops, UCLA rallying from 23 points down to stun Illinois 95-94. Number 20 Arkansas cruised past Mizzou 94-86. 18th ranked SLU visits Dayton tomorrow. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. So, in Cardinals news over the weekend, and it's spring training, you guys know how I feel about this.
They all matter.
I don't care too much about the results. I don't care if you win or lose. I don't care what your batting average is. There's stuff process-wise, though, that I do think can give you glimpses into what's going to happen in the regular season. One of the things that was encouraging from the weekend was Quinn Matthews. Now, I just mentioned a negative, which was Michael McGreevy's velocity today. The inverse was true over the weekend. Quinn Matthews' hardest pitch of the 2025 regular season was 96.0 miles per hour, according to Kareem Hack, who does great work over on the Twitter universe. Over the weekend, Quinn Matthews threw 5 different pitches of 96 miles per hour or harder. 5. So he had 5 pitches in his first appearance of the spring alone that were harder than any pitch he threw at any point in 2025. That, my friends, is a meaningful spring training statistic. There you go. The velo is back on Quinn Matthews. That was a huge problem for him last year. And it was related to some injury stuff, underlying issues. So it's positive to see him getting back to what he was 2 years ago with the velo. Now, command is another thing that he's got to keep working on. He's got to keep working on multiple different pitches. This does not mean he's going to be ready to go for the big leagues opening day or anything like that, but it's an encouraging sign. The other thing that was encouraging was just the overall stuff that came out of the hand yesterday from Kyle Leahy. It graded out extremely well. So that was also another encouraging sign. I don't know what that's going to mean either as we get closer to the start of the regular season, but it's a positive at this point in the spring. T-Bone, were those the two things that stood out to you, or was there something else that jumped off the page as you looked at what the Cardinals did over the weekend?
Yeah, I think it's the pitching side is the one that really sticks out to me because, I mean, you could mention Raynel Rodriguez hit an absolute missile for a double in his first appearance in spring training yesterday for the Cardinals, but he's a ways away still. He's probably 2-3 years away. So, though that's impressive, the ones that are more meaningful to the Cardinals are on the pitching side. From Kyle Leahy grading out extremely well, as you had mentioned. He threw a disgusting sweeper to Jeremy Pena, I think it was, of the Astros to strike him out. I mean, he looked really good with 3 strikeouts in his 7 batters that he saw. Looked like the guy that we kind of saw that you hope would continue to play up coming into the rotation to start this year. And then like you mentioned with Quinn Matthews, if he can get that fastball back, it's going to help him set up all the secondary stuff a little bit better this season down in AAA. And that is a big development for the Cardinals because last year going into spring training, we thought, boy, this is the best lefty they've got in there. He was the best lefty in their system and thought, okay, maybe that guy could be like a top 3 arm in your rotation. And then you saw what happened last year and went, whoa, that is that's concerning. That looked more of like what Liberatore and Thompson started to do down in the minor leagues. If he can get back to having some upside, it'd be really nice to start trying to picture, your top two lefties in your rotation being Liam Doyle along with Quinn Matthews, and then having Sanger hopefully develop from the right side. Then you start to see how the pieces start to fall into place. And then if you can hit on a couple of guys like a Fitz or a McGreevy or Dobbins, for example, that can kind of backfill back into that rotation, now you're starting to cook with something there when you're looking at building out what the starting five for the rotation could look like in the next couple of years.
Yeah, you could see a scenario where it's Liam Doyle, free agent signing / trade to be your number 2, and then Quinn Matthews, Sanger, McGreevy with depth options that include Dobbins and Fitz and Bryson Motts and Tink Hintz and so many of these other guys. And that has the look of a legitimate major league rotation that you're starting to build there. It's going to take some time, but Quinn Matthews is seemingly kind of the X factor that allows for the rest of it to make a lot more sense with where they're slotted in your rotation. The other thing that I think a lot of people are reading into were the lineups from the weekend, where you had one day it was Mason Wynn at the top of the lineup, and then the next day it was Victor Scott II at the top of the lineup. T-Bone, how much stock did you put into what we saw with the lineup construction?
Well, I originally thought that maybe this is just kind of how they're going to view this as kind of competition early on, and then Marmol poo-pooed on that by saying, hey, yeah, we just want the infielders one day up the top and then the outfielders on top the next day. Today it's an infielders at the top day. I mean, you look at it, it's Wynn,
Burleson,
Weatherholt in the top 5 of the lineup, or top 4 of the lineup. So right now I wouldn't read too much into it. I do think, though, like in the leadoff spot, and we've talked about this, I think right now they're at least thinking it's Wynn / Scott, and then depending on how Weatherholt looks, he might work his way into this. But it's kind of what we expected. Those are going to be the 3 names to monitor as this kind of goes along in spring training. Wynn, Scott, and maybe Weatherholt as the X factor there for the leadoff spot. Those are the 3 guys while Nootbaar's down that I think they're going to consider.
I do think it's interesting that whoever wins that job does have a trickle-down effect. I mean, if Scott or Weatherholt become your leadoff hitter, my assumption would be you get a righty as that number 2 hole hitter. And, man, who's that?
Herrera, maybe?
Wynn, I guess.
Maybe Wynn if you want to keep Herrera low in the order to drive in runs.
In that scenario, Herrera's probably your cleanup hitter. I don't know who else would serve in that capacity as a right-handed hitter.
You don't have another good righty to slot into that. So, yeah, it probably would be Wynn that's in the 2.
So you're going like Weatherholt or Scott, and then Wynn, Burleson, Herrera, and then I guess whoever wasn't, I guess the Weatherholt's would probably, if it's Scott, 5. Weatherholt would be your 5
This is why, unless Scott does really well in spring, in the leadoff / wherever the hell he's hitting in spring training, I think everything just kind of lines up easier if Wynn is the leadoff, especially if you're going right, left while Nootbaar is injured, because then you can go Wynn at 1, you can go Weatherholt 2 or Burley 2. I think Burley's hitting 2 today, if I'm not mistaken. And then you can kind of slot things out the rest of the way to where you end up with Herrera 3, maybe Burley's in the 4 spot if he's not hitting in the 2 spot. So everything just lines up better.
To be your opening day cleanup hitter.
Yeah, just what Cardinal Nation wanted.
You guys ready for that?
I'm ready.
As long as we're not going Gorman Walker back-to-back, right?
Oh,
We've established that.
No, we are. We are Bradford. Why not?
I think you're either looking at Weatherholt being your 2-hole hitter or Gorman being your cleanup hitter. One of the 2. Because if Weatherholt they don't feel like is ready to be that 2-hole hitter, you're probably putting Burleson there. And then you go Herrera 3, Gorman 4. And then I would imagine in that scenario, it probably is Walker as your 5-hole hitter.
Walker 5.
Could very well be those 2 back-to-back and then Weatherholt being your 6-hole hitter.
Yeah. You thrilled with that, Bradford?
Bet to ball, baby. Bet to ball.
Listen, it's not what you want, but I think it might be what you get.
Well, especially like before they signed Urias, I was okay. We probably then I guess hit Pozo 5 as the right-handed bat, but now I'm not even sure he's in the lineup.
Yeah, I would say today the
probably
odds
is
are
Walker 5. Yeah.
I would say as of today, the odds are that you'll get Urias as your starting 3rd baseman on opening day. That would be my guess. With Weatherholt at 2nd, and then we already knew it was likely to be Burleson at 1st, Wynn at short, Herrera behind the plate, and then I would say today the odds are in favor of Saggese being your starting left fielder with Scott in center and Walker in right, and then Gorman's your opening day DH. I think that's your opening day starting lineup.
That 5 spot's going to be one of Walker or Pozo. If Urias doesn't end up beating out Gorman to start at third base,
Sure.
that's how you end up in that situation where Pozo then probably DHs and hits fifth, and then you've got Weatherholt behind him sixth and Walker seventh in right field. But yeah, like I would bet today Walker's probably hitting in the top 5 of your order when the Clydesdales are running around Busch Stadium against the Rays.
The first half of 2025 Pozo, right? You can guarantee that, Tanner? You can guarantee it?
First half the Pozo?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Lock it in.
Maybe. But like this is what it's going to be all season long. Is like I don't think you're going to see Walker hitting in like the 7th or 9th spots much this season. Unless he really struggles, then you move him down and then maybe move Pozo up there. But I think you're talking Walker Gorman in the top half of your lineup most of the season.
Yeah, there's a decent chance of it. It's 12:47. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Cardinals in action right now. Jojo Romero getting some of his first appearances in Grapefruit League play. The Marlins are tied with the Cardinals at 1 in the top of the 3rd inning. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so here on BK and Ferrario, we'll get back to the college basketball side of things. We did not talk much about the Illini earlier today. Is their defense going to be a hindrance to them going on a run in this year's NCAA tournament? We'll talk about that coming up at 1 o'clock. But next, time for the junk drawer, including just a horrific injury. I'm curious if T-Bone's ever experienced anything quite like this. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
College basketball is on ESPN tonight. Kansas and Houston tip off at 8. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, the other day I saw on social media a video of a professional poker player who's in the midst of a tournament, a huge hand, and the big reveal. You know what? I'll just let you go ahead and take a listen.
Look how excited he is, his fans, his friends.
Wait a minute, Vince. Something's wrong out there.
We'll operate it on it tomorrow with the million.
Yeah, there's something very wrong. He's doubled over. He's really in pain.
Yeah, it snapped.
What the? What? This is no bluff, let me tell you.
Poker injury. I told you this is an injury sport. They say that poker's not a sport, but this is like...
Well, this is pretty serious. People are rushing to Justin's side.
I'm really hoping it'll be okay. I'm able to play. I'll play it out.
Tournament officials have stopped the clock. We're going to find out what's going on, and we'll be right back right after this.
So that's what it sounded like as a poker player tore his ACL while celebrating a victory as part of the World Series of Poker. He was jumping around, celebrating with his fans. He's running by. He's giving them some high fives, and then knee bends out. He tears his ACL, ends up continuing to play.
Well, as
but
I would expect.
He tore his it's a painful injury, I would have to imagine.
But he's sitting down. You can ice it.
Tore his ACL while playing poker.
So he pulled a Grammatica, but in the poker realm.
Yeah.
That's something.
Basically the equivalent of that. T-Bone, my worst, injury like this is probably the one that I had recently that a lot of people heard about, which still hurts to this day. Broke my toe while flying around flying around my child like an airplane, and forgot that his climbing toy was on the ground, piece of wood right in the small toe on my left foot. So that's been painful for about 3 months at this point. So that's one of them. When I was younger, though, I was in high school. I was sleeping one night and felt a cramp go up the back of my calf. Oh. It ended up going up through my calf muscle into the back of my knee where the insertion point is. I actually had a partially torn meniscus from the calf cramp, which took place while I was sleeping. And to this day, I have a Baker's cyst in the back of my knee because of that partially torn meniscus that releases fluid into the back of my knee. So I've got to be super careful of that when I'm running. So that's one that's affected my life for more than, about 20 years at this point. Have you ever had one of those embarrassing injury stories that took place for you, T-Bone? I
have. Now, it's not something that still affects me to this day, but it knocked me out for a decent chunk of summer baseball growing up. When I was in, I think, 5th grade or 6th grade, I got sick during the summertime, came down with a bad cough, and I coughed so hard I gave myself a hernia and had to have surgery, and then missed about a month and a half before I could get back to doing normal activities, and was kind of just stuck in the house for half of my summer because of it. And, typically you'd think hernia, you're lifting, right? That's the thing that happens with, we see this all the time with sports players. They get those sports hernias. Yeah, mine was just from a bad cough. That's probably my worst injury.
Speaking of surgical procedures, no, in all seriousness, BK, I think you're going to be dealing with, let's say, a comparable situation not too long from now, okay? When Luka inevitably gets into the baseball side of things, you may find yourself having to serve as that catcher to warm up different arms, okay? So take it back to when my brother was in select baseball, middle school going into high school. You have to play a lot of games, a lot of venues. 8 a.m., 8:30, you're trying to ward off the sun as much as you can, but you may not have the best space in which to warm up, okay, to serve as that catcher. And maybe you've got some guys who are already humming it upwards of 70 miles per hour. Maybe you're not able to see all that well. Maybe you're not the most adept backstopper. And sometimes you take a two-seamer with velo in a place where it doesn't belong. And not only does that occur, you shake it off, you get right back to it.
Of course you should.
And 3 minutes later, You take it again. I'm just saying.
It's just
hypothetically
hypothetical.
speaking, that could happen a few years down the road when Luka is interested in playing baseball. We got a few texts on this from Gert B. Frobe. A buddy of mine broke his toe while playing Golden Tee. Woof. I don't know how exactly that happens, but that's rough. From the 636, BK, there was that one time you had a crampy wampy while running a marathon. That did happen.
I remember him getting a crampy wampy while it's in team.
Yeah, that happened recently.
All of a sudden he's going, and he's like a fish flopping out of water.
From Sheepy Reporter, I stepped on a tiny Stegosaurus toy last night, down for about 46 minutes. Man, those are real.
Those are bad.
Brutal.
From Jack B's Hampton homie, I tore my ACL while playing hacky sack.
Oh, that's something. Never seen that one before.
Oh my God. I ran over my ankle at work with a cart and tore my Achilles tendon.
Oh,
oof.
That's brutal.
Oh my God. From the 314, guys, broke 2 ribs and had a herniated disc while coughing on a 15-hour drive to Florida.
Oh, that would be brutal.
I wonder how far into that drive that took place.
Yeah, that's a good
Can you
question.
imagine you're like 2 hours in, you have to make the decision, do we keep going to Florida or do we just turn back now, honey?
That would be brutal, especially not all highways are very smooth on the way back, right? That bouncing around. Whew.
From the 330, pulled an oblique while cutting my toenails.
Now that is something. How is that possible?
I don't know. I truly don't know. That seems impossible.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Some of these are incredible. Walking at night, hurt foot on dominoes, fell and chipped my tooth.
My mom, when I was growing up, we were selling, when I was in, it was like the summer before I had the hernia surgery, we were selling our house before we moved out to the one that they have today. And my mom was expecting to close, I can't remember if it was close the sale on the house that we were at or close the sale on the house that we ultimately ended up getting. So she was waiting a phone call. Well, she was tired and she falls asleep on the couch. I think it's in the wintertime, if I remember. She's got a blanket on. She hears the phone ringing and she wakes up and is immediately wanting, okay, I got to hurry. I got to get to the phone and answer the phone. And as she gets up to move and get off the couch, gets tangled with the blanket, wraps her up and takes her down. And she lands like straight on her knee, bent at a certain angle, and it damaged cartilage in her knee.
Oh, my
and
God.
she had to go have right knee surgery. And I tell her to tell people that she was like playing football with us out in the backyard.
Yeah, of course.
Not that she got tackled by, a blanket while taking a nap.
We're getting a ton of these. I think they can all be summed up by Mahomes' long body. Glad to hear you guys have so many athletes that are listening to the show.
Yeah. This
is why you guys listen. I appreciate you. You understand exactly what you're getting with the expertise of these world-class athletes that are joining you here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, it's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's 1 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. By the way, I didn't mention this. Alex out today. He'll be back in on Wednesday.
That explains why I'm over here.
Yep. Alex will be back in on Wednesday, so one more day of the three of us coming up tomorrow. Alex, a little bit more of that well-deserved vacation as the Blues have been off for their Olympic break. Coming up next, do the Illini have a defense that's good enough to go on a run in the NCAA tournament, or is that going to be the Achilles heel that prevents them from doing so? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Cat, I would kick you in the...
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm.
Loss over the weekend for the Illini. They've now lost 3 out of 5 alongside T-Bone and Bradford. I'm BK. T-Bone, the Illini's defense is the thing that gives me the most concern to this point. It's been mediocre so far in conference play. Now, the offense is still unbelievable. It's the best offense in all of college basketball, the most efficient offense in the history of KenPom. So there are really very few questions on that side of things. You're deep. You have guys that can score in any given moment. You have guys that can consistently get you 20-plus. Keaton Wagler's still one of the best players offensively in college basketball this year. You're fine on that end of the floor. The defense has become a bit of a concern. In your last 3 losses, you've given up 85, 92, and 95 points. Now, disclaimer, all 3 of those came in overtime. So, A, it's not as though they're bad losses, and B, you're giving up more points because you're going to overtime. But even if you look at the efficiency numbers, they're not good enough. They need to be a lot better. How much of a concern is it at this point, what they've done defensively?
I think it's a serious concern since they are a team that I thought was going to have title aspirations because, like you mentioned with some of these teams, like I'll go back to their 2 losses before the one this weekend to UCLA. Against Wisconsin and at Michigan State, I thought it was because they were down a guard or 2. Like the Michigan State game, they did not have Boswell for that game. And then against Wisconsin, they didn't have both Boswell and Stojakovic because he had sprained in his ankle. So I thought, okay, that's what would explain this defensive issue because the defense had been pretty good up until that point to where there was only one game, and I think it was like their last 15 where they'd given up 70 or more points. So I thought, okay, it's just the guards that are down. And then I see them struggle again this weekend at UCLA, and everybody was back healthy. I think it's a major concern because this is the kind of thing that can really derail you of hopes of getting to the Final Four national championship because they can probably get away with this kind of UCLA was a weird one, but I think they would play well defensively in their first round or 2 matchups. But once you start to get in closing in on your region and you start to eventually get closer to running into a 3 seed or a 1 seed, when we get to like the Sweet 16, Elite 8, that's when this is where it could become a big concern for them. So I am getting a little worried because they're getting beat off the dribble and they don't have someone to really protect inside because Ivicic's brother is their best shot blocker, but they don't want him in games late because he's not as good offensively as he is. So that's where they are trying to find a good balance. They've got to start doing better at guarding on the perimeter. They're getting beat off the dribble a lot, and you saw that in the game against UCLA. Stojakovic couldn't get stops. You couldn't see Wagler get stops. Boswell even had some of his struggles. Now, I think part of that could be because he's trying to work himself back from missing, I think it was like 5 or 6 games because of a broken hand. But that's where it's going to start for them. Their offense will be fine. But when you get to March, you've got to be able to stop some of the best teams. And right now, I don't think they're capable of doing it. I expect Michigan is going to put up points on them this week.
So especially with the personnel coming back, getting everybody back into the proceedings there, what is the biggest thing right now, Tanner, that you think is really prohibiting the connectiveness from happening in the same way that it did early in the season? Obviously, you have legitimate teams you're going up against now, game in and game out in the Big Ten, but little things here and there. Obviously, the 3-ball was huge for UCLA to begin that second half, to really begin the surge and the run, and yet I look at the box score, I think about everything at the end of that game, and underneath in the interior, you're still out-rebounding UCLA by 16. So is it a confluence of events here? What is the biggest determining factor?
I just don't think they can guard with the better offenses across the country. Now, UCLA doesn't fall into that. That's what makes this one so weird.
Yeah.
But like most of these games that I was just talking about where they gave up 70 or fewer points, it's against the middle of the Big Ten. right? It was like at Penn State, versus Rutgers, at Iowa, who's a solid team, but they play slow. So, like, their goal is not to even get to 70 points. They want to win like 69-65. Minnesota, they did this against. But when you start to see when they started going up against the top half of the league, Purdue, they give up 82 points against. Nebraska, they held in check the second time around. The first time, though, they had their struggles against them.
Gave up 83.
83. They gave up 85 to Michigan State. Wisconsin is a good basketball team. They gave up 92 to. So I don't think anything's really changed. I think the thing from their personnel perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing that changed is they're going up against better competition now. And the warp that is a part of this team is now starting to show its ugly head, which is, hey, they may not be able to get enough stops to win games against the top offenses across the country. They almost have to outscore their problems, but I don't think you can do that against some of these teams like Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska consistently, Purdue consistently, and I think that's the problem that they're running into.
So let's put this into perspective, because Illinois is looking like a pretty solid 2 seed at this point. I don't think there's still a chance, I suppose, that they could get up to the 1 line, because if they beat Michigan, that's the kind of win that could really stand out on a resume. If you beat Michigan later this week and then like win the Big Ten tournament, maybe. But that's pretty much what it would require. You would have to probably win out in order to get that 1 seed. Let's operate under the assumption they're a 2 seed. You will go up against most likely 7 seed, let's call it, in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Those teams as of today would be Villanova, Utah State, SLU, Wisconsin. We just talked about what they did against Wisconsin. They were able to put up points against them. We know what SLU's offense is capable of. Now, would SLU beat Illinois? I'd bet against it. Would they be capable of scoring with Illinois, though? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then you get into the Sweet 16, and now you're playing against most likely a 3 seed. The teams that are currently listed as 3 seeds include Florida, who can absolutely beat you, Kansas, who on their best day could be one of the best teams in the country, and they've got one of the best scorers in the country in Darren Peterson when healthy. Nebraska, you already mentioned what happened the first time that you played against them, gave up 80+. And then Gonzaga, who, again, at their best, can score with just about anybody. They're one of those teams, though, that I don't really buy into them this season, but set that aside for a minute. The next best team on there, though, is Michigan State, who we've seen. So I have some serious concerns about this for Illinois. I think they're a really fun team to watch, and the offense is good enough that they could make it to the Elite Eight. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but this is the kind of Achilles heel that gets you beat in the NCAA tournament and gets you beat a hell of a lot quicker than you should be for an offense that's this good. You look at the other teams that are up there with Illinois right now, like just by the KenPom defensive rating, which is points per possession allowed. That's what it is judged based upon. Michigan right now is the number 1 team in these rankings. They're 5th on offense, 1st on defense. Duke, 7th on offense, 3rd on defense. Arizona, 9th on offense, 2nd on defense. Florida, 16th offensively, 4th on defense. Houston, 10th offensively, and 7th defensively. Those are the top 6 teams outside of Illinois in the country right now, according to KenPom. Illinois, 1st on offense, 30th on defense. One of those things is very much not like the others. It stands out like a sore thumb, and it's the kind of thing that Illinois just can't have at this point in the year. Speaking of the current projections and the bracketology and all this stuff, over on bracketmatrix.com, they keep a stock of where people are at, where all of these bracketologists that are worth their salt are ranking all of these teams. So as of today, they have SLU as a 7 seed. They have Mizzou as one of the top 11 seeds in the country. If Mizzou's able to get into the tournament, there's a decent chance they can move up to a 10 seed. There's a decent chance that SLU just stabilizes where they're at. They don't have a ton of opportunities for big wins down the stretch. I think 7 seed's pretty much where you're going to end up. How would you feel about a SLU versus Mizzou first-round matchup here in St. Louis, T-Bone?
I think it'd be a lot of fun. Now, I would bet on SLU to beat Missouri, but I think it'd be a hell of a matchup and be fun to watch, especially with the local ties. And if it was here in St. Louis, it'd be a heck of a crowd. It'd be kind of split like bragging rights. You'd have probably 50% SLU fans, 50% Missouri fans. I think it'd be a nightmare scenario if you're Missouri to see them across the bracket from you for the first-round matchup, because I don't think they would match up well with SLU. I think SLU would beat them. That's not saying Missouri's not capable of beating them, but SLU would be the one that I would pick, but it'd be a hell of a lot of fun if it comes here to St. Louis.
Shocker here. I honestly don't believe that the gap, that the chasm is truly that wide. If you're talking about a matchup head-to-head, you tell me, for as sound, as locked in as SLU can be at times collectively, we haven't seen a lot of it on the defensive end. Do you truly have an answer along the lines of an Arkansas, what we saw, that adjustment for a Mark Mitchell? I really don't know, because if you're talking about singularly the best player on the floor, how many of these early games, first round, second round, BK, come down to the very end? Yes, free throws, we cannot possibly fail to acknowledge that. But the best player on the floor, give me Mark Mitchell in that sort of a situation with even competent guard play, because I do feel as if Missouri trending in that direction. Also, Trent Pierce with that length, with the ability to stretch the floor from three as well. That's a matchup nightmare potentially for SLU too. Do not sleep on the Tigers in that sort of arrangement. I'm serious.
I do wonder how the size would play.
Yeah.
Because I think SLU can run with Mizzou. There's no doubt about that. They can get out in transition, and there are some things that they can do that certainly would give Mizzou some problems. I mean, they give everybody problems with what they do offensively. I do think Mizzou's size could give SLU some issues that they're not used to.
Even
based
Phillips.
upon, yeah, exactly.
Bodying
Phillips, Mark Mitchell is a really good rebounder on the interior, and he can stretch things out. So I think it'd be a fun matchup, honestly. I would bet on SLU. I think they're the better team. But I would be curious what the line would be for such a game. I bet you it's like 4 points in favor of SLU. I bet you it'd be pretty close.
Like 5 in favor of SLU. Yeah.
It could be pretty close.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of SLU fans would suggest, that's like a 10-point game in favor of SLU. I don't think so. I think it's a lot closer than some would probably believe going in.
The size, to your point, would be something that's just hard to judge by how SLU would handle it, because there's no size in the A-10. That's what Missouri is, because Missouri's one of the biggest teams in the country.
Correct.
Now, I would pick SLU because I think their talent trumps over the size of Missouri, but it would be something that could give them problems.
Yeah, it'd be a hell of a lot of fun. I'm rooting for it at this point. And I know you asked me earlier today, T-Bone, do you think Mizzou fans would be upset if Mizzou loses to SLU in the NCAA tournament? And most of the time, I think the answer would be yes. That'd be really frustrating. I don't think that would quite be the same case this year, because I think most Mizzou fans are pretty realistic on what this team is. And getting to the NCAA tournament, I think, is a success. And losing that game would be disappointing, but I don't think people have extremely high hopes for what this team is going to be. And I think a lot of people know SLU's really good. That would feel a lot different than losing to Princeton.
Yeah.
Princeton was not as good as Mizzou and should not have won that game. And there was a clear path for Mizzou in the tournament if they had beat Princeton.
5 seed, 6 seed?
They were like a 15 seed. Didn't they beat Arizona?
Sorry. Princeton was, yes. What was Mizzou?
Okay.
They were 7 then, I guess?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they played against, I think, Utah State in the first round and beat them.
Yeah, it wasn't a Norfolk State situation.
Losing to Drake last year, that was frustrating because Mizzou had the talent advantage. Now, Drake was a good team, don't get me wrong, but I would not feel quite the same way this year if Mizzou loses to SLU. That is one where I think the talent gap is not as wide.
I agree. I'm with you. I think the reason I asked that question is I know how teams of Power 4 conferences feel of, hey, we shouldn't lose to a team like SLU any given year in the tournament. But when you look at SLU, and this is different compared to like football, you can have group of however many there are at this point in college basketball that can still be better than some power conference teams, especially when you're talking the middle of the SEC. And I think that would be the case with SLU going up against Missouri.
All I'm hearing, the potential for one of the most entertaining affairs in round one. That's all I'm saying.
It's a very big clash of styles as well. SLU wants to play this up-tempo, we're going to run, and that has been Mizzou's case in the past. That is not who they are this year. They play at a much slower tempo. They want to kind of grind things out. They are more of a half-court offense, and we get the ball to Mark Mitchell, he's going to go to work. We get the ball to T.O. Barrett, he's going to go to work. It would be quite a clash of styles. I do think that Mizzou would turn the ball over 25 times in that game. That would be a huge problem for them because SLU is very good at forcing turnovers. So it'd be fun. It'd be fun to watch. All right, coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Jamie Rivers here, and I want to caution you about car insurance. Some of you might be paying way too much. That was the case.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Bradford and T-Bone on BK, some news to pass along. T-Bone brought this up during the break. Tarek Skubal just said he's going to make one start for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic.
And then?
That's it.
Oh.
He's just going to make one start, and then he's going to go home.
Oh.
Well, he's going to go back to spring training. I would imagine this is about his free agents who walk here and not wanting to potentially screw anything up. Get prepared for the season the way that you normally would. If that's the case, though, I don't really know why you even make a start. Take the spot from somebody else that could have otherwise been a part of it.
And now it makes it harder for Mark DeRosa to kind of game plan what he's going to do the rest of the way in this tournament. This is weird. I don't know what this is about.
How much of these half measures basically are really dampening your enthusiasm for the WBC? It's legitimate.
I mean, you really saw it. It didn't hamper it in the last go-around. But the fact that they had all these restrictions on, like, what do you do with your bullpen arms, right? They can only go one inning. And then, like, DeRosa can't, like, play the best matchups because he has to run on restrictions that teams are running. And this is not just for Team USA. It's across the board for all the teams. Kind of takes away some of the excitement around the game. And then you add in Skubal's opting out after a game, even though, like, I think he's already built up quicker than he would be in a spring training.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then you add in the insurance issues for guys. Yeah, it's kind of dampering what this WBC should have been.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. One of the top running backs that was expected to be on the market is already off the market. Now, we said earlier today, Cowboys got some business done. They're expected to franchise tag George Pickens. So with the Falcons, hey, franchise tag, that's going to be placed on our star tight end, Kyle Pitts, who finally had a good season. Javonte Williams also going to be staying in Dallas. He agreed to a 3-year deal worth $24 million, including $16 million guaranteed. This is roughly the market we expected him to be in. He's just going to stick with Dallas instead of exploring that on the free agency market. T-Bone, you already mentioned that it's going to be a pretty thin class. We've now seen 3 or 4 of the top players that were expected to be in that class either re-signed or franchise tagged by their current teams.
This feels like it happens every year when it comes to NFL free agency. My first reaction, I see the list and go, oh, there's only like 10 guys I like. And then I see the franchise tags come out and go, oh, there's only 5 more guys that I like on this. And we'll see if, like, Breece Hall gets it. It sounds like the Jets are, like, iffy on if they're going to do it or not, which...
The latest that I saw this weekend is that they're expected to.
Yeah, which I don't fully get, but you know what? You New York, you do you.
Sure.
Yeah, it takes away from what this free agent class is going to be. The nice part is at least if you are a team that is running back needy, there's still a decent class, even if you take Breece Hall out, right? Like, it looks like Walker might end up getting to the market. That position is at least deep. But when you start like Kyle Pitts, you take him off the board. All right, no more tight ends available essentially in free agency to really upgrade your team.
David Njoku's out there. I think there's a lot of solid players.
There's nobody great.
The top of the class is terrible. That's what it's. Honestly, it's the entire offseason. The top of the NFL draft, limited. There's not the star-level talent at premium positions that you would typically expect. You want a linebacker? Great class for you. You want a safety? Great class for you. You want a running back? We got one of them. He's a stud, but there's just one. The rest of it, though, like the receivers are fine. The defensive ends are solid. The corners are okay. Yeah. There's not that typical blue chipper at the top of the class the way that we've seen in previous years. Same thing is kind of true in free agency, and that's why over on NFL.com, they put out their top 101 free agents. You guys have any guesses on who the number 1 player was for that?
In free agency, I'm guessing Hall.
Nope.
Who am I forgetting here?
Breece would have been near the top of mine, too.
Yeah.
They had Breece Hall at number 13.
Oh.
I think they're taking into account positional value.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Number 1, then. Pickens?
Nope.
Although Pickens got the tag.
He is on the list. He's 2.
Who am I missing here? Bradford?
Is it my guy? It's Signal Caller. I've been pounding the table for him. Some Malik Willis action?
Malik Willis is number 1 on the list.
I would not have gotten that.
Quote, I see him as the most dynamic quarterback in football as a runner, and his tape in Green Bay showed incredible growth as a passer over 2 years with Matt LaFleur, despite his limited sample size. He jumps to the top spot in this ranking based on the same logic that applies in the NFL draft. If a potential franchise quarterback is good enough to be ranked in the top 5, he should be ranked number 1 by virtue of the position. The ceiling is the roof.
Franchise quarterback.
I'm out.
It sounds like there's a lot of buzz for him to potentially be heading to Arizona, by the way.
Well, you know what?
That's the latest buzz at the NFL Combine this week.
Now that you say that, everything kind of makes sense now.
Yeah,
where Arizona would pay a non-franchise quarterback to be a franchise quarterback. You know what? It's a day that ends in Y where the Cardinals are a dysfunctional organization.
Because let me get this straight. Even though I have been a supporter of his in the weeks leading up to this, obviously, when he was drafted, it was 2022, right? Mm-hmm. By Tennessee.
Yeah,
he was a 3rd-round pick. Was he ever viewed under the lens of being potentially a transformative guy at the position?
Not transformative. Franchise guy, I think there was at least some talk going into that draft that he could be. There was some talk going into the draft of, hey, does he go in the first round?
Everybody thought he was a project.
Yeah, similar to the Will Levis conversation. I don't know if he's as good as maybe he's being hyped up to be, but he's a quarterback, so maybe he goes first round. Ultimately went a little bit later, but I like Malik Willis. I If you're not giving him guaranteed money into year 3, I'd be open to doing it. If you're the Cardinals, if you're the Dolphins, you're the Jets, you're one of these teams that doesn't have another option, I'm good with it. That's fine.
Would you not just run it back with Kyler?
No, I think it's done. I don't think that it works. Like, I think the culture there has grown, I don't know if toxic is the right word, but stale at a minimum. And I would rather try something different.
I'd just as soon run it back with Jacoby Brissett. At least he extracted the most out of Trey McBride.
Yeah, that's kind of more where I would go. If you don't want to go Kyler, which is totally fair. Like, I agree on what you're saying. I would rather have Brissett than go with Willis.
I just think there's more upside with Willis. I think there's a chance that Willis is a franchise guy. I think there's zero chance that you're extending Brissett beyond next year.
I don't see it with Willis, especially when he's not with a good roster. So I'm paying him, and we're just kind of we're still stuck. I mean, you're stuck with Brissett. You're stuck anyway. But I don't see it with Willis. What I see is Fields, because I think he's a good runner. I think he's not a great passer.
Quick one out in Arizona. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. actually the number 1 heading into next season, or has it become Wilson?
I think Wilson has been the more productive and better player so far. Yeah. I would expect that should change under the new coach, because I don't think they used Marvin Harrison Jr. the correct way previously.
You hope.
It was very stagnant. He was on one side of the formation. He's going to be outside. He's going to be running these like deep down the field target. I think they're going to use him in a better way. All right, last thing here. Speaking of wide receivers, Jackson Smith-Njigba said he, quote, isn't overly concerned about getting a new deal, end quote, with the Seahawks this offseason. But when he does, he believes he should be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. That would mean $40 million per year, which is how high it would have to be in order to beat Jamar Chase's current mark among the top receivers in the NFL. T-Bone, would you do that if you were the Seahawks this offseason, paying Jackson Smith-Njigba market-breaking value?
I think I would. I hesitate for a second because he's only done it for really 1 year as a major breakout. But that 1 year, I'm looking right now.
It's unbelievable.
Was better than Jamar Chase's career high in receiving yards in a season. So even though it's only been for a year, he did it, and he did it with Sam Darnold as his quarterback. Right? When Chase did it, he had Burrow / a corpse of some backup when Burrow was hurt. I think I would. I think you have to do it if you're Seattle. You have to keep a premier playmaker that's only going to be 24 years old going into next season around long term. And if you're going to do that, yeah, you got to reset the market with them. So, yeah, I think you have to if you're Seattle. I would do it.
Resetting the market, how can you not? I mean, prior to last season, you had 2 guys, in my estimation, in Chase and Jefferson, and then a pretty sizable gap until you reached the rest. You're telling me that in this case, that this individual, JSN, he's not worth CeeDee Lamb money, that he's not worth DK Metcalf money. By the way, number 4 among all wide receivers as far as compensation goes and more. Keep him happy. Keep the engine, the catalyst of your Seahawks offense going.
I wouldn't do it yet. I'd wait. You still got time. He's under contract this year at $2.5 million. He has a 5th-year option that you still have available to you, probably $15-ish million. Then I've got the franchise tag available. Right now, I have him under contract for the next 3 years at a much lower rate than what you guys are talking about. Even that franchise tag would be worth less than the Jamar Chase number. And if I'm giving him that contract right now, it would be in that year that I'm paying more than the franchise tag, because that would be when the real numbers start to hit for you 2 years down the road. I'm not giving him that contract right now. We can talk about it. And if you want to sign for below market value, we can get that done early. But I'm not giving up my leverage early in order to sign you to a new market-breaking deal. Why would I do that if I'm the Seahawks? It wouldn't really make any sense to do so. So, yeah, I understand why he wants that money, and he's well within his right to do so. But if that's your current negotiating tactic, we can wait another year to talk about this. And if you produce next year the way that you did this year, you get $45 million a year. And that's an extra $3 million a year or whatever for me. Cool. It was worth it for me to see you do it one more year instead of just having 1 year of production. That's the way that I would view it if I was them.
If you're them, now, I typically don't side on the player side of this to first point out, but if you're them, do you do it so you potentially avoid any kind of holdout from him?
Exactly. No, he can't. He's got 2 more years of this, guys.
That doesn't mean he can't hold out.
But with the new rules, he kind of can't. There's really no way to do so.
Sorry, let me rephrase this. My back hurts in camp holdout.
And that's fine. Go ahead and do that. Like, you've got to do that this year and next year. And then we've got the franchise tag. It is legitimately 3 more years of club control that the Seahawks have over Jackson Smith and Jigba on a lower number than what Smith and Jigba would be asking for on a contract extension. I appreciate what he's asking for. I understand it. And from the player's perspective, he has every right to do so. But if you're looking at it through the general manager's lens, there is no reason to sign that contract at that rate right now. They have no urgency to do so.
Is he not the sort of guy, though, for whom maybe even John Schneider makes an exception in this case? I'm not saying you're going to poison the well with him over the course by playing hardball, in a sense, over the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Really.
But do you make an exception for this guy?
For what?
I'm not talking about optics here. I'm talking about the player. I'm talking about what he brings to you as really the face of that franchise moving forward.
I think that's great. You're going to make $2 million this year. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it sucks, but it's business, man.
True,
There's
but there are guys
personal here
who are exceptions. Maybe he falls under that category.
And if he wants to take less, if he wants to take $38 million a year or $36 million a year, I'll do it right now. But that's me giving in early. By signing this contract after year 3, there's only one way to make it work from the team side of things, and that's you're giving me something to give you the immediate satisfaction of guaranteed money. And if he's not willing to give any of that up, if he's not willing to take a little bit less, as the team, I have no incentive to give you more. Not yet. Next year, it gets a little tougher, and the year after that, then it gets real on the negotiating side of things, and that's when Smith and Jigba starts to have a lot more of the leverage, but right now, he has almost zero leverage with the team to negotiate, so he can ask for whatever he wants to. There is no real urgency for the team to get this done with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I know that sounds weird because he just had an unbelievable season, but you got to think about it through the leverage that each side has at this point in the negotiation.
I'm not disputing the leverage. I'm simply saying he has given you 3 fantastic seasons to this point. The production would have been upwards even more if not for the presence of Metcalf. There are some guys for whom you make that exception, even if you are an institution like this.
I think
he's
the
that
best
guy.
Organizations avoid that. I think the best organizations across any sport avoid he's been a good player and is the face of our franchise, because that's when you end up working yourself into problems. Look at the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals. The Yadi Wainwright experience probably would have ended a lot sooner from I don't want to say a better run organization, but as you saw, the longer they kept just saying, well, we're going to stick with them, then you end up almost hampering yourself because you end up creating a spot in a rotation for Adam Wainwright towards the back end of his career, being kind of hamstrung by Yadi being in and out as being a catcher every day for the St. Louis Cardinals.
But he's only 24. The cost of business is only going to skyrocket exponentially.
You got to hold your.
Who are those receivers that are going to get paid in that market? I think we will see Puka.
Might be one.
Puka will get
definitely
paid. I don't think Pickens will reset the market because he's not that level of guy. There just aren't very many wide receivers that still need to get paid that are expected to get top of the market kind of money. So you're basically talking about, will he eventually beat Puka? Maybe. But Puka might be better this year. And then if you're the Seahawks, you can go out and say, yeah, if you want to produce like Puka, you can get paid like Puka. But you didn't produce like him this year. And that's why we didn't pay you last year. So I'm personally of the opinion they should hold off on this, wait another year. If he produces the same way next year, maybe you get it done. But for right now, no reason to do so. Coming up next, does baseball need to take a page out of the NHL's playbook? Well, based upon what we just read as a news story, maybe not. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for a New Jersey giveaway. This month, we've got your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by the captain, Braden Shen. It's the old Blues jersey, which is now the alternate jersey, and it is a beauty. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked number 3 in the nation for cardiovascular care by Modern Healthcare. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Okay, so you're headed to spring training in Jupiter.
your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues back in business soon. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. NHL action finally resumes February 25th with St. Louis and Seattle dropping that puck the following evening. Note netminder Jordan Binnington as well as defenseman Colton Parayko will bring home silver medals. Connor Hellebuck backstopped Team USA to Olympic gold on Sunday, turning aside 41 of 42 shots he faced against Canada. MLS season opener, City SC earns a 1-1 draw versus Charlotte right now. Cardinals-Marlins spring training proceedings continuing from Roger Dean Stadium, 2-2 through 5 innings. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the Olympics were obviously a huge success for the NHL. We had the best on best, and everybody loved it. It created a lot of publicity. It created a lot of buzz surrounding the players that were over in Italy for these games. My guess is there will be some more viewers on the NHL the rest of this season than what you would otherwise expect in a normal year because of their participation in the Olympics. And so the obvious then question as a follow-up is, should baseball do this? And that's what Adam Wainwright asked over the weekend on social media. He said, hey, I loved watching this. Representing your country is the greatest experience in the world. I hope baseball can figure this out for the 2028 Summer Games. It'd be cool to see, some of the best players in the world representing their respective countries. We have some of that with the WBC. It's different. It's not quite the same, but, it's kind of similar to the Four Nations. Is this something you think would be realistic, T-Bone? Could baseball do this the way that the NHL does?
I think they could. Will they? No. I think they could. Let me change it. I don't know that they can because I think it's too hard to take 2 weeks off in baseball and keep your pitchers built up across the sport like you would have to do, right? I know you could have guys throwing, but I don't know that they would feel comfortable with having their pitchers like starters, for example, like McGreevy. Say he doesn't make the Olympic team. He's not going to be on the mound, and he's not going to be stretched out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how long it takes. I think it gets complicated when you start talking about that, and especially when you're talking about, at least from the NHL side, we have a decent understanding of the human body and trying to prevent injuries and stuff. You know what we still haven't solved in baseball is protecting the arm. They still have no real ability to know when or if a guy's going to blow out his arm. So teams will be very concerned about shutting it down for a couple of weeks, even though they can still throw on the side and then sending them over there to the tournament. And then on top of that, I don't even see how you get close to having conversations like this of meeting between the PA and the owners when they're about ready to go through one of the biggest fights in baseball's history. So, no, I don't think we're going to see it. My hope would be you could figure it out, but I just think it's too complicated, at least for the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah, I just don't see a scenario where it would make sense. If it wasn't a 162-game schedule, maybe you could make it work. But, dude, it's all summer. And we're already seeing a bunch of the players from Puerto Rico, for example, had issues getting insurance for the WBC. Now imagine if instead of sliding that from spring training, you're doing that in the middle of July. Like it just replaces the All-Star break, essentially. But instead of it being 1 week, now it's like a 3-week stretch where you're off for that. I don't know how you could realistically make it work. The scheduling doesn't make sense. The baseball injuries for the pitching side of things doesn't really make sense. I don't know what you would do with the guys that don't play. Are you having a mini camp where they're practicing and scrimmaging and doing like a mini spring training in the middle of the season? All of it just feels quite awkward. I don't see where it would be possible for them. So I'd love to see it. It'd be fun. WBC is enjoyable. I'm excited for that. I like watching the hockey players play in the Olympics. I don't think it's something that we can realistically expect for Major League Baseball now or in the near future, unless they change the schedule, unless they go to like 140 games, in which case, okay, maybe now suddenly you could make something like that work. There's still logistics that would be tough, but that would make it a little easier.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a nightmare to try logistically to get it figured out.
Agreed.
140 games, maybe you're better, but even then, like, I think you probably got to start the season even a little bit earlier still then. And like this year, I think it's the earliest start in baseball history, like March 26th or 28th is opening day. I don't see how you do it. And if you figure out a way, and you want to talk about like getting way out in advance, if you can figure out a way and a better understanding of the arm and how you can keep it healthier,
good luck. Then
maybe. But like, they're not even there yet, so no.
Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Thursday night, Blues and Kraken. Pregame at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That podcast is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It's free to download. It's sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. By the way, Daniel Jeremiah came out with his NFL Combine Week top 50 players overall. He does have Fernando Mendoza at number 1. Zion Young, the only local kid from Mizzou or Illinois that is a part of this. He has Jeremiah Love, another local kid previously from the city of St. Louis, is at number 2 overall, the running back from Notre Dame. Number 2 overall in Daniel Jeremiah's Combine Week top 50 players. We began the show where we end the show today, and that is with Team USA. Big win in the gold medal game yesterday, T-Bone. I would say a lot of the conversation is about 3-on-3. We had that conversation at the beginning of the show today as well. You can check that out on the podcast page. But overall, your biggest takeaway from, A, the Olympics overall, but B, the win yesterday for Team USA was what?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from that game was, man, Connor Hellebuyck kind of shoved it to people who thought, hey, this guy can't perform in big games. He finally had that moment of, hey, I can perform on the biggest stage because this is no shot towards the U.S. And they did what was needed to win gold. They were not the better team on ice yesterday. They were outshot significantly in that game. Scoring chances were 45-23. Expected goals were 5-2 in favor of Team Canada. But Hellebuyck was awesome. Stood on his head, was able to help guide them until at least they got to the 3-on-3 overtime. And then they took advantage on their one opportunity and scored the game-winning goal. So that's my biggest takeaway from it. I thought the Olympics at the beginning were kind of boring from the hockey perspective. A lot of those prelim games weren't that exciting. Then you got to the quarterfinals, semis, and championship games. Like, okay, this is what I was expecting. So I think overall it ended up exceeding what I had first seen from it in the prelim stage.
Yeah, there were so many guys that they changed their narrative with one game. Connor Hellebuyck goes from a notorious loser to a winner with one performance. That's all it took. Connor Hellebuyck yesterday stood on his head and gave Team USA the opportunity to win that. Without him, they lose that game.
Yep.
And they lose it in a pretty significant margin. A lot of the other guys on Team USA were considered to be losing players prior to this one. You get into the playoffs, they find a way to lose. And for Austin Matthews, that's been his history. Guess what? Now he's a gold medal winner. He's a guy that will have that for the rest of his life. Jack Hughes, gold medal winner. He will have that for the rest of his life. And I think that's what's so special about these moments is they just become such a huge jumping off point for players. I'm really curious to see what it means for some of these guys and their NHL futures. I also, listen, I was rooting for Team USA, don't get me wrong, but I feel for Connor McDavid, man. Every time, always the bridesmaid and never the bride. I can't think of very many careers in all of professional sports that mirror what we've seen with Connor McDavid. Because it's not as though he fails. He did not score yesterday, but typically you see him produce at a really high level, even in the Stanley Cup final. And his team just seemingly loses. His team loses every time. So I feel for him, but overall, a spectacular game. The speed was unbelievable. The talent was on full display. I hope this becomes a potential jumping off point for U.S. hockey in general as well, where they can take this and then really run with it. Just an outstanding Olympics and fun as hell to watch yesterday.
And that game kind of solidified, maybe not solidified, but really bolstered some guys' cases for post-career as well. Like you look at Hellebuyck, guy that has won the Vezina, an MVP, now a gold medal winning goalkeeper. You look at Matthew Tkachuk, two-time Stanley Cup champion and a gold medal finalist now, along with a silver in, if they gave out a medal, at the Four Nations tournament. And he's only 29 or 28 years old. Like, he's going to get more opportunities to go out and get more gold medals at the next coming Olympics. Like, some of these guys, this was not also just about, hey, get rid of the mantra from a Hellebuyck, but man, it adds to their case for when they are up and ready for the Hockey Hall of Fame. Like, it probably locks in Matthew, as long as he stays healthy for the next couple of years, he's probably a Hockey Hall of Famer already, based on the fact that he's got a gold medal and 2 Stanley Cup championships already.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch, and I can't wait to see what it means for the rest of the NHL season and what the NHL is able to do to capitalize.
I can't wait to see the Blues again.
Well,
it was like watching Team Canada and Team USA, right? It's like the same style.
I'll be at the game on Saturday.
Oh, that's how excited you are to be back.
I'm excited to see the Bluey game.
Oh.
My son is certainly excited to be there.
You get to see a Hughes, too, the hero in action. That's awesome.
Yeah. I get to see him. We'll see Bluey. We'll see Bingo. We'll see Louie out there. Bluey and Bingo are the 2 characters from Bluey.
Oh, wow. Yes, I would not have known that.
Yeah, it's the Bluey game, and they will also have the giveaway prior to the start of the game,
There
where
you
it's
go.
the Build-A-Bear game. A Blues Build-A-Bear. So, I mean, you really can't beat that.
No, Bears all the time.
Twofer. So we'll be there for that one. Blues versus Devils coming up on Saturday. If you guys missed any of the show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, whether you do that on the 101 ESPN app or 101ESPN.com. You can always see us on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is also where you can go to find the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast and the Redbird Report. All of that on the YouTube page. For Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll have Jeremy Rutherford on with us tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.